Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Man in Marvel, Thank You Supreme Doomsday. Chapter 41. In a blink of an eye, it was afternoon school time. Su Yi asked Hannah to be sent back to her home. After all, there is still some time before the party starts. After Hannah finishes preparing, someone will naturally pick her up. Driving the Bugatti Veyron, Su Yi returned to the villa. Just after returning to the villa, Hila was wearing Su Yi's clothes, hanging on Su Yi's body like a koala. The slender legs were just wrapped around Su Yi's waist, attached to his ear, and said, "Su Yi, just now a secretary who claimed to be Tony Stark came over to send an invitation letter." "Invitation letter? Where is it?" "On the table." Hila replied to Su Yi's question, but still hugged Su Yi tightly. "The action looks very cute." Su Yi just dragged Hila and walked towards the table. Then he sat on the sofa and opened the invitation letter in front of Hela. Roughly browsed through it again. Su Yi casually threw the invitation letter aside. "Su Yi, what's wrong? Tony Stark was going to run a race at the Monaco Racing Club and asked me if I wanted to go." After speaking, Su Yi said to Hela again, "Do you want to go?" "What's delicious there?" "I don't know, I haven't been there either." "Then let's go and see what's delicious." "Okay, I'll take you with me when the time comes." After chatting with Hela for a while, the villa's doorbell rang. Su Yi patted Hela's beautiful back, signaling her to get off. Then went to open the door. Su Yi opened the door, only to see Hannah standing in front of him very playfully. Hannah took off the glasses on her nose and wore a white dress similar to that of a little princess, looking full of vitality. There is also a light makeup on the face, not like the heavy makeup of other women. Gives a fresh and refined feeling. Immediately, a smile appeared on Su Yi's face, and he said enthusiastically to Hannah, "I've been waiting for you for a long time, come in quickly." With that said, Su Yi greeted Hannah and came to his villa. Hannah blinked her eyes, observing everything in the villa like a curious baby. The villa is decorated in the most suitable style for parties by a professional made team. It gives people a very atmospheric and brilliant feeling. However, when Hannah came to the living room, she saw Hila sitting on the sofa. The whole person has an indescribably lazy temperament. That's not the point. The point is this woman, wearing Su Yi's clothes. Hannah's hostility instantly attracted Hila. Hila turned her head slowly, gave Hannah a cold look, and stopped paying too much attention. She knew that Hannah, a little girl, had been pursuing Su Yi recently. In this regard, she has no other ideas. On the contrary, the more people like Su Yi, the more proof that he has a good vision. Therefore, Hela just glanced at Hannah indifferently, and then turned her gaze back to the TV. However, Hannah was very nervous in her heart at this time. Su Yi probably already has a girlfriend. So should I pursue my own happiness? Thinking of this, Hannah took a deep breath and adjusted her mentality. Then he asked Su Yi, "Su Yi, this is..." Before Su could answer, Hela said flatly, "Hala, Su Yi is my creditor." After saying her name and explaining, Hela stopped talking. Instead, it was Hannah's turn to be stunned. "Creditor? What do you mean?" "Just stay at my house and not leave." As soon as Su finished speaking, he stroked Hela's beautiful hair. Seeing this scene, Hannah couldn't help puffing up her cheeks. Although Hannah can be sure, they are not a relationship between boyfriend and girlfriend. But in the process of getting along, something is very likely to happen. Thinking of this, Hannah felt very anxious in her heart. No, she must start early. Find a time to confess to Su Yi. "The people are seated," Hannah asked. "Then, is there just the three of us at this party?" "No, there are others, but at this point in time, they should be ready." After finishing speaking, Su Yi was in the chat group, "Everyone." "Su Yi, everyone, are you ready?" "Whitebeard, gu la 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 la, it's ready." "Yuki Asuna, well, of course I'm ready." "CC, let me guess, have you changed at least 100 outfits at home?" "Yuki Asuna, cat shocked, gif." "Yuki Asuna, say, you witch, did you install a camera in my house?" "CC, ha 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 ha, it seems that I was right." "Edward, I'm ready here." "Estes, Aang, I've done it here too." "Jawali, I have been waiting for a long time." Hinata, me too, me too. After getting replies from group members, Su-yi said. Then, let's set up a shuttle passage. Following Su-yi's voice fell. He instantly received a notification from the chat group. Ding, Edward Elric requested to join the world, please agree. Ding, Whitebeard has applied to join the world, please agree. Ding, Asuna Yuki applied to enter the world, please agree. Ding, CC applied for entry and requested to join the world, please agree. Ding, Hanada applied to join the world, please agree. Ding, Estes applied to enter the request to join the world, please agree. Ding, Uji Huali applied to enter the request to join the world, may I agree. Looking at the chat group, the notification sounds popped up one after another. Su-yi immediately said, I'll agree. Afterwards, Su-yi said to Hila and Hannah, get ready, they're coming, the party will start soon. Hearing Su-yi's words, Hannah stood up from the sofa and said to Su-yi, then I'll open the door. No need, Hannah, remember I told you that they are weirder. Hannah nodded subconsciously. She still hasn't realized what Su-yi's words mean. I only heard Su-yi say again at this moment, because they don't need to come in through the door, they just need. Su-yi didn't speak anymore. Because in front of him, one passage after another appeared. What is this? Hannah subconsciously covered her mouth. He looked at the scene in front of him in shock. Let alone Hannah. Even Hila was stunned on the sofa at this time. With potato chips in my hand, I forgot to eat them for a while. Channels appeared out of nowhere. The first to come out was Asuna Yuki. Yuki Asuna came out of the aisle wearing white stockings, a dark brown skirt and a light yellow long-sleeved dress. As soon as she came out of the passage, Asuna Yuki saw Su-yi. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. It's like turning into a butterfly. Pian came in front of Su-yi. I only heard Yuki Asuna excitedly say to Su-yi, Su-yi, I'm Yuki Asuna. Su-yi also introduced Hela and Hannah to Yuki Asuna. It's just that Hannah still couldn't fully recover from the shock at this moment. He could only nod subconsciously. Immediately afterwards, Edward Elric came out of the passage. Kyun, cough cough, Su-yi, long time no see. Edward almost called Su-yi the group leader. Fortunately, it was swallowed abruptly by Edward. Before coming, they had already agreed. When gathering, call the group leader's name uniformly. At this moment, CC's voice reached everyone's ears. Su-yi, come and help me, I can't carry it anymore. With CC's voice down, Hannah suddenly felt that Su-yi beside her suddenly disappeared. When she realized it, Su-yi's figure had already appeared beside CC. Hannah just felt that she was being careless. At the beginning, I should have asked carefully, what is the strangeness in the end? Even with a little more preparation, this situation will not happen now. Su-yi came in front of CC and removed a pile of pizza from CC's hands. Feeling the much lighter CC in his hand, he looked at Su-yi in front of him with a faint smile on his face. Hey, I met Su-yi again. Yeah, we meet again. Su-yi also smiled at CC. Just as the voice fell, Hanada, flied out of the passage. Jumped directly into Su-yi's arms. He tightly hugged Su-yi in front of him. The whole person rubbed on Su-yi's body. Brother Su-yi, we finally meet again. Little Hanada, you seem to have grown up a lot. Su-yi looked at Hanada in lavender clothes before him, and said seriously. He. Hearing Su-yi's praise, Hanada first laughed out loud, and then seemed to have reacted. The petite pretty face is like a ripe apple, bright red. It looks so tempting that people can't help but want to take a bite. Brother Su-yi, do you like growing up? Hanada's voice was so small that only Su-yi, CC and Asuna could hear it. Especially CC, after hearing this sentence, even bent over slightly, and whispered to Hanada in Su-yi's arms, Little Hanada, what you mean by Brother Su-yi is that I haven't seen you for a long time. Looks taller again. Yuki Asuna. Yeah, I didn't expect you, Hanada, to be a little filthy girl, I thought it was wrong. Yuki Asuna also controlled her voice, and kept teasing Hanada there. As a result, Hanada's cheeks looked even more rosy. HMPH, ignore you. Hanada said angrily to the two girls. Then he leaned directly into Su-yi's arms. He tried his best to sniff the scent on Su-yi's body. At this time, Anakanaretsu, a woman who looked like Yamato Nadeko, came out of the passage. He nodded to Sue, and then stood aside. It's just that Ujawali's eyes never left Suyi from the beginning to the end. Soon, Estes also came out of the passage. Compared to others, she directly pulled out a wild boar with a rope. Wild boars are frozen in ice. Used to maintain the maximum limit. I didn't expect you to really catch a pig. Yeah, didn't you say you wanted to eat wild boar? It's for barbecue, so I caught one along the way. After Estes finished speaking, he looked around and said, it seems that everyone is here. Wait a minute, it seems that Whitebeard hasn't come yet. By the way, if I remember correctly, the height of the old man with white beard seems to be meters. If the old man with white beard comes out, won't this villa be blown up? Yuki Asuna hurriedly said to Suyi. However, compared to the shock of others, Suyi held Hinata in his arms, and said softly, I've thought about this a long time ago, you can rest assured, there will be absolutely no problem. Just watch my performance. After all, the last channel began to expand. Everyone present couldn't help becoming nervous. Gudong, not knowing who it was, he subconsciously swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Looks very tense. The passage continued to expand, and the sound of footsteps coming from inside could even be heard. And at this moment, Suyi slowly put Hinata in his arms on the ground. Then I took it out, and used 100 points from the points mall to exchange for the shielding device. The whole figure flickered. When his figure reappeared, there was already a blue Rubik's Cube in his hand. Hela's pupils shrank suddenly. As the goddess of death, she can easily recognize what it is. Obviously, this is a cosmic Rubik's Cube that contains infinite energy and powerful spatial power. I saw Sue holding the cosmic Rubik's Cube with both hands, and the power of both palms suddenly pressed against the cosmic Rubik's Cube. Bright blue suddenly surged out from the cosmic Rubik's Cube. In an instant, everyone noticed that the space in the villa seemed to have tripled in size. Let alone meters now, even if Whitebeard was 3 times taller, it would be more than enough to accommodate him. And the energy fluctuations stirred up by the Rubik's Cube in the universe are completely shielded by the shielding device, and no one will monitor the abnormality. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them in shock. This miraculous method, presumably only Suyi can do it. Got it all done. Suyi put the infinity Rubik's Cube back in the collection room. When his figure appeared again, Whitebeard's laughter also reached everyone's ears. Gu la 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 la, it looks like I'm the last one to arrive. Along with the words coming out of the tunnel, the figure of Whitebeard came into everyone's eyes. All he could see was the terrifying meter body, standing like a hill in the center of the room. Immediately afterwards, Whitebeard placed the wine barrel, which was nearly 2 meters high, on the ground. Just like this, everyone can also smell the strong aroma of wine from the barrel. Everyone is finally here. Now, let's start our carnival party thoroughly. As Suyi's voice fell, Hana in the distance finally came to her senses. Her gaze swept over each member. From Hinata, Yuki Asuna, CC, Hana Retsu and Estes. Finally, there is Edward and the Whitebeard with a terrifying body. Hana rubbed her eyes subconsciously, looking at all this in disbelief. I just feel like I'm dreaming. But the touch on the body is constantly reminding Hana that this is not a dream. In other words, everything that happened before my eyes was reality. Thinking of this, Hana looked at Suyi not far away. She looked at the bright smile on Suyi's face. It's different from the usual laziness. Suyi really smiled happily. A smile is contagious. Especially when you see someone you like smiling so happily. A smile unconsciously appeared on Hana's face. She had already made up her mind to integrate into Suyi's life. Although these guys in front of me are indeed very strange, as Suyi said. But so what? When Hana thought of this, she undoubtedly felt a lot more relaxed. The body is not so tense. And Hana's change was also noticed by Suyi in a short moment. Hana, come and help me cook this pig. Well, good. Saying that, Hana had a moving smile on her face. Immediately afterwards, he came to Suyi's side in a bouncing manner. At this time, Hila also chatted with Ujawali. Others also began to taste the pizza brought by CC. At this moment, the atmosphere of the party is gradually rising. However, not far from the revelry villa in the distance. But the battle broke out again. I saw the Hatred and the Hulk fighting together. The terrifying damage caused can be said to be shocking. In S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury took his place. He was originally black, but now his face was even darker. At this moment, the communicator next to him rang. Nick Fury, I heard you have something to ask me. On the other side of the communicator, the voice of General Ross came out. Ross, I ask you, what happened to the other giant? General Ross was frozen for a moment, and he deliberately asked, what other giant? What are you talking about? I don't understand. When Nick Fury heard General Ross's completely irresponsible words, he knew that he planned to blame his subordinates. Bang! An angry Nick Fury slammed the desk in front of him. Mary Falca, General Ross, after I finish this matter thoroughly, I will ask you a good question. I hope you can give me a convincing answer when the time comes. Nick Fury almost gritted his teeth and said this sentence. God knows how angry he is now. He was just a little busy with other things. General Ross actually managed to create a giant, how could this make him not angry? Think of him as the king of agents, he should be calm and calm. But when facing General Ross, this super cheeky old fox, he still often loses his temper. Quickly took a few deep breaths. Nick Fury reached out to Tony Stark. Tony, I need your help. And when Nick Fury contacted Tony Stark, General Ross on the other side angrily threw the communicator in his hand to the ground. At this time, General Ross was standing in a mess. This used to be a laboratory for research on the Hulk. But now, it has been completely razed to the ground. All the latest information that has been researched is completely buried here. The reason is that the appearance of Hatred broke the original order here. Hate, Hulk, you two guys really gave me a big gift. After General Ross finished speaking, he picked up the communicator on the ground again. He needs a good reason to get out. Otherwise, once the above finds itself, I'm afraid everything about me is completely ruined just like this laboratory. At the same time, his eyes looked at the destroyed laboratory, and a flash of greed flashed in his eyes. Although General Ross hated the Hulk and the Abomination very much, but after seeing the great power they displayed, the desire in his heart gradually took root in the deepest part of his heart. If I also have this kind of terrifying power, even if it is found by the superiors, I will not be afraid at all. Thinking of this, an evil smile appeared on the face of General Ross, the old fox. The laughter grew louder and louder, and finally echoed in the ruins of the experiment. In the villa, Whitebeard held a huge wine glass in his hand. It was brought by Whitebeard himself. After he drank a full sip of the mellow wine, he immediately laughed loudly, "Gu la 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 la." Whitebeard looked at Su Yi. Su Yi, do you know? Now above the sea, everyone is discussing your terrifying record. Almost the pirates or the navy on the entire sea have engraved your figure in their minds. They even hailed you as the Emperor of the Sea. Above our 4 emperors, we collectively call you 1 emperor and 4 emperors. As soon as Su heard Bybird's words, he was also slightly surprised. He didn't expect that he would become the emperor above the 4 emperors. I have to say that this title sounds quite prestigious. At this time, Xiao Hanada also said to Su Yi, Brother Su Yi, I have now thoroughly mastered the soft fist and the taijutsu taught to me by Grandpa Whitebeard. As long as there is a Chunin exam, I can immediately be promoted to Chunin. Xiao Hanada raised her small fist. At that time, I will be the youngest Chunin. As soon as Su heard Hanada's words, he rubbed Hanada's hair. Yes, yes, Xiao Hanada is the best. After a pause, Su Yi said again, but Xiao Hanada, if you can exercise your strength a lot, you must know that this is your greatest wealth. Roll your eyes. The pupil technique originated from the Otsutsuki clan. Its potential can be said to be unparalleled. Especially after turning into Tenseiken, its power will be even more terrifying. After hearing Su Yi's words, Hanada nodded thoughtfully. I only heard her say to Su Yi in her own soft voice, yeah, I will definitely work hard to train myself. I will definitely not let Brother Su Yi down. Yuki Asuna sat next to him, and said again, speaking of eyes, if I remember correctly, CC, you should be able to give gyos to others, do you want to give me one? CC lazily ate pizza next to him, jokingly said, hey, didn't you say that you want to practice gymnastics, and then come and hit me? Why do you want my gyos when we meet? After hearing Cece's words, Yuki Asuna said immediately, "Ah. You witch, can't it be that pizza can't stop your poisonous tongue? Humph, isn't it gyos? I don't want it anymore, I want to rely on let your physical skills become stronger." Yeah, then I'm really looking forward to it. Cece's poisonous tongue is really not covered. Casually let Yuki Asuna go crazy. Originally in the chat group, watching two women bicker was already very interesting. But now that they can watch the two women complaining to each other in reality, the atmosphere is not too funny. On the contrary, it was Hannah who looked at Cece, who was wearing a white straitjacket, and asked, as if asking, "What is gyos?" After hearing Hannah's words, Cece immediately looked at Su Yi next to him. Su nodded, and said to Cece, "Hannah is my own, no problem." After getting confirmation from Su Yi, Cece slowly said, "Gyos is equivalent to a special ability. I can give this ability to anyone who has potential and aptitude. The ability varies from person to person, but if you abuse it, it is very likely to cause a runaway ability." After hearing Cece's words, Hannah nodded slightly. Then she asked a surprising question. I only heard Hannah say to Cece, "So can I have gyos too? Because I don't want to be an ordinary person, I." Speaking of this, Hannah subconsciously glanced at Su Yi next to her, and said firmly, "I want to help Su Yi as much as possible." After Hannah's words fell, Cece looked at Su Yi, who was not far away, and said with a smile, "It seems that he is indeed one of us. It's just that the gyos grant, the first thing to determine is whether you have the qualifications. If you don't have the qualifications, I can't give you the ability." Cece added, "And as I said before, if you use this ability improperly, you will go berserk. Of course, if your belief is strong, you can completely control it." After speaking, Cece looked at Su Yi again. She was asking Su Yi with her own eyes, if she should give Hannah a try. To this, Su Yi didn't have any answer. He was wrestling with Estes. Whether to grant it is Cece's own freedom. Cece obviously understood what Su Yi meant. The smile on his face became even brighter. At this time, Yuki Asuna also said to Hannah, "Hannah, you have to think about it clearly. Once this ability is obtained, it is very likely that the ability will go berserk due to various factors in the heart." Although Yuki Asuna said before that she wants the power of gyos. But in the end, it was nothing more than her daily banter with Cece. Gyos, while special, didn't suit him. Cece also added at this time, "That's why I don't give Asuna gyos, because she is too hesitant. Even if she has the qualifications, after getting gyos, she is very likely to go berserk. Okay, you witch, tease me every chance you get. Look at my tickling skills." After the words fell, Yuki Asuna's figure came to Cece. The gesture is to tickle Cece. Know your own body. Cece knows how sensitive her body is. If you really want to tickle it, she will definitely laugh like crazy. Immediately, Cece quickly changed his words, I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding." Then Cece changed the subject and said to Hannah, "Hannah, have you really made a decision?" Hannah nodded slightly. After learning about gyos ability, she has already made up her mind. "I want the power of gyos." Cece looked at Hannah in front of her, and nodded slowly. At this time, Cece no longer had any lazy breath on her body. I only heard Cece say coldly, "Then, Hannah, let's conclude a contract." As Cece's voice fell, Hannah felt as if she had fallen into a blank. In my mind, there are all the voices of Cece. I give you strength, and in exchange, you only need to fulfill one of my wishes. After signing the contract with me, you will live as a different existence from human beings, with a different will. A different life. A different time. Hannah only felt that in the blank world, there were countless pigeons flying wildly in the air. The picture changed again, and there were countless women with red flying bird patterns on their heads, as if they were standing there praying. Countless pictures flickered in Hannah's mind. Cece's voice also continued, "If you have this awareness, Hannah, then make a contract." Following Hannah in this emptiness and weird space, the voice fell. In reality, she suddenly opened her eyes. Hannah snapped her eyes open. A red flying bird pattern appeared in Hannah's right eye. Yuki Asuna is relatively close to Hannah, so I can see the pattern in Hannah's right eye more clearly. Is this gyos? Feels so unique. I wonder what ability Hannah awakened. I don't know why, but it looks so cool. The surrounding members gasped in amazement. At this time, Hannah also slowly came back to her senses, and said to Cece in front of her, "Cece, am I completing the contract?" Cece nodded, and at the same time took out a mirror and placed it in front of Hannah. Hannah saw a red flying bird pattern appear in her right eye. Look at this pattern. Hannah secretly thought in her heart, from now on, I can be regarded as a person with superpowers. This should be able to help Su Yi. At this time Cece asked Hannah, so do you know what your ability is? Hannah frowned slightly, I'm not sure, and I can't say what kind of feeling it is. As soon as Su saw this, he came to Hannah, and said to Hannah, then use Gios on me, and I'll help you see what your abilities are. Hearing Su Yi's words, Hannah shook her head subconsciously, no, what if I hurt you? It's okay, I know my ability, so you can use it on me boldly and confidently. Su Yi was afraid that Hannah would not believe him, so he said again, trust me, I will definitely be fine. When everyone saw Hannah, they seemed to hesitate a little. Whitebeard immediately said, Gu la 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 la, you must know that Su Yi is known as the king of the sea. Since he dares to say that, he must be fine. Edward Elric, yes, Su Yi is invincible in my eyes. There is absolutely no problem. After hearing the words of the giant Whitebeard and the short Edward, Hannah still wanted to confirm it again. Is there really no problem? Hannah was really reluctant to do this. But she also wants to know what her abilities are. Well, no problem. After getting Su Yi's confirmation, Hannah took a deep breath. He only saw Hannah's eyes looking at Su Yi in front of him. Look at each other. An illusory red flying bird pattern flew directly towards Su Yi's eyes. Following the red flying bird pattern, it completely disappeared into Su Yi's eyes. Su Yi felt that his spirit seemed to be completely torn and crushed. It was like tens of thousands of nuclear bombs exploding in his mind. Terrible tearing pain filled Su Yi's mind. This spiritual explosion, why is it still real damage? Su Yi complained in his heart. The next second, Su Yi shouted, ah, I'm dead. Immediately afterwards, he rolled his eyes and lay down on the ground, completely out of breath. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. Hannah's complexion turned pale immediately. Su Yi, he. Hannah just felt like her brain was shutting down. In the blink of an eye, tears were already rolling in the eye sockets. And at this moment, Su Yi suddenly opened his eyes. A carp straightened up and stood up from the ground. Hannah was stunned, and then the extremely nervous Hannah hugged Su Yi's body tightly. Were you okay just now? Scared me to death, woo woo woo. Su Yi felt Hannah in his arms, patted Hannah's beautiful back lightly, and said, okay, look, I'm alive again, there's nothing wrong with me. Not only is there nothing wrong, Su Yi even awakened the ability of mental barrier from this death. In the future, mental explosions like Hannah's will never have any effect on him again. Mental resistance has been greatly improved. In other words, the Hannah in front of her is completely her lucky star. Thinking of this, Su Yi said to Hannah in front of him, Hannah, your ability should be a mental explosion, and your ability doesn't seem to be weak. If you don't have any spiritual attainments, you might stare at someone and die. It's so strong. I feel that Hannah's ability is so strong. Noopy, I don't know why, but I suddenly want a Gios too. Wow, whoever is staring at someone died. Hannah, you must be careful in the future. Don't accidentally stare at us. Hannah heard everyone's praise and ridicule, and most of her nervousness and helplessness dissipated. I only saw Hannah saying to Su Yi very seriously, then can I help you in the future? Yeah, whoever wants to bully me in the future, just stare at him to death. Stare at him to death. Hannah's ability can definitely kill people with her eyes. As Su Yi's words fell, the others laughed out loud. At this moment, Su Yi picked up the wine glass in front of him, and said to everyone present, everyone, let us celebrate, Hannah has acquired a very powerful ability. Cheers. Cheers. However, it is different from the joy in Su Yi's villa. In the commercial street not far away, Tony Stark, wearing a battle-damaged steel suit, kept flying towards Su Yi's villa. In S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury saw the scene in front of him and immediately asked, Tony, what are you doing? Hearing what Nick Fury said, Tony Stark gasped and said, I went to stop the Hulk just now, but he sent me flying for thousands of meters with just one punch. And he has gone berserk now. With my current strength, it is impossible to compete with them. When Tony Stark spoke, blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. It can be seen that Tony Stark's internal injuries are not serious. In particular, the steel battle suit on his body was extremely dilapidated. Where the armor is somewhat weak, Tony Stark's skin that is constantly bleeding out is exposed. And if we want to stop them completely, we can only lead them to Su-Yi's villa. As Tony Stark's voice fell, his speed suddenly increased a notch. Because at this time the angry Hulk had completely locked his eyes on him. As for the Abomination, he kept chasing the Hulk behind him. So, Tony Stark was flying at the forefront, the Hulk followed, trying to crush Tony Stark, and the Abomination was chasing the Hulk. The three form a beautiful landscape in the commercial street. And quickly approaching Su-Yi's villa. It's just that what they don't know is, in Su-Yi's villa, Su-Yi is not alone. In the villa, when the carnival is in progress, everyone held wine glasses in their hands, and they kept drinking there. The delicious barbecue also exudes bursts of fragrance, penetrating into everyone's nostrils. Eat meat, drink big. Even Hela's face no longer had that iceberg-like expression. From time to time, Whitebeard's iconic laughter could be heard in the room. Gu la 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 la. I haven't been this happy for a long time. Wait for the next time you come to my world to have fun, and I will treat you to a meter-long Sea King barbecue. You can also come to my world, the dangerous taste in my world is not bad. Brother Su-Yi, you can also come to me, I'll treat you to eel ramen. Laughter and laughter filled the villa. But at this moment, there was a little noise outside. The TV in the living room automatically displayed the situation outside. The surveillance cameras outside the villa are working. I only saw Iron Man flying towards him quickly. Hulk and Abomination followed closely behind, and many villas in the villa area were trampled to pieces by these two guys. You know, many of them belong to Su-Yi's properties. Whitebeard took a sip of the wine into his own mouth. Gu la 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 la, just after drinking, the entertainment show is coming. Whitebeard turned to Su-Yi in front of him and said, Su-Yi, what are you going to do with these guys? Since they are willing to come over as guests, let's welcome them well, what do you think? Gu la 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 la, it's just what I want. I also want to see how strong they are. Maybe this time we will be able to fight heartily. You know Hana Retsu and Estes also showed a strong fighting spirit. As for the others, they also showed varying degrees of expectations. In this case, let me go out and welcome them to join. The corners of Su-Yi's mouth raised slightly, then walked towards the backyard of the villa. Tony Stark saw Su-Yi at this moment, and walked out of the villa. The heart hanging in my heart suddenly let go a little. I think this guy in front of me must be able to defeat the Hulk and the Abomination. Just when Tony Stark thought of this, but I saw Su-Yi smiled at him, and then said to Tony Stark, Tony, remember to tell Nick Fury, I want these two guys, if he wants to go back, come and find me in person. As Su-Yi's voice fell, before Tony Stark could react, Su-Yi kicked Tony Stark directly. Accompanied by Su-Yi's voice, let's go. Tony Stark only felt a terrifying force, flying his body into the distance. At this time, Su-Yi also came to the collection room at an extremely fast speed. Take out the Cosmic Rubik's Cube again. Cosmic Rubik's Cube activates. Su-Yi directly teleported the Hulk and the Abomination to his home. Then Su-Yi returned to the villa, activated the Cosmic Rubik's Cube again, and led everyone to an unnamed island. This is the powerful power of the Rubik's Cube. It's easy to move around. The sudden change in the environment did not shock everyone. Instead, they all set their eyes on the Hulk and the Abomination in front of them. Su-Yi casually threw the Cosmic Rubik's Cube aside. Then he said to everyone, Everyone, let's start our entertainment. Let's see who can defeat these two guys first. However, it was Hulk's fist that responded to Su-Yi first. Roar. The Hulk at this moment has entered berserk mode. Absolutely no sense at all. Some only have ever-expanding anger and strength. Especially for Su-Yi in front of him, the Hulk has completely engraved Su-Yi's figure in his bones. He was the one who defeated himself with one finger back then. That sense of shame suddenly surged into Hulk's heart. I saw that Hulk's fist was getting bigger and bigger, and he was about to touch Suyi. Estes made a move. A large amount of ice directly froze most of Hulk's body. A fist as big as a sandbag abruptly stopped in front of Suyi. I'll be watching you from the side, you can just call at ease, I will bring Hila and Hannah, and cheer you up there. After speaking, Suyi brought the two girls to the side, sat on the beach of the uninhabited island, and just watched the performance in front of them. Hila even handed Suyi and Hannah a bag of potato chips each. It felt like they really came to watch the show. Roar. The Hulk under the rage can only know how to keep roaring. Most of his body was frozen, and with a sudden force, the ice was completely broken. At this moment, the huge foot stepped on the ground suddenly, like a human-shaped cannonball, rushing towards Estes. The space is like being squeezed by the Hulk. In the blink of an eye, he came to Estes. Estes didn't expect that the Hulk could be so fast with such a big body. Just when Estes was forced to use his own trump card, the figure of the Whitebeard appeared in front of the Hulk. The two giants immediately confronted each other. In front of Whitebeard, even the angry Hulk is more than half smaller than Whitebeard. There was a full 3 meters difference between the two. Whitebeard is even more domineering with top-level weapons, mixed with the ability of the shaking fruit, wrapped his hands, and attacked the Hulk. The moment they collided, the sand under their feet shook several meters high. Accompanied by this force, Estes also jumped to the side. But he never wanted to hate, so he focused on Estes at this time. I saw the fist of hatred protruding high, smashing towards Estes like a broken bamboo. It's just that the power of the abomination is no match for the angry Hulk. Although Estes can't beat the Hulk, it doesn't mean he can't beat the abomination in front of him. Don't underestimate me. As Estes's voice fell, she saw a chill condensed around her. In the blink of an eye, he completely wrapped himself up. The ultra-hard frozen ice, centered on Estes, forms a general ice haze. Under the control of Estes, General Binglin waved his icy fist. Bang! The two collide. The hatred flew out directly. But Estes' General Binglin also shattered more than half. For a while, the battle was at a stalemate. Until this time, many members knew that Suyi's world was not that simple. I only heard Uji Huli say at this time, everyone, it seems that we can no longer fight alone. Facing these two guys, we must work together. Ever since, the members of the chat group, the first joint battle officially started. Suyi sat beside him, eating potato chips. Looking at the people not far away, they worked together there. I only saw Estes filling up General Binglin with ice. A body of the same size as the abomination rushed towards the abomination brazenly. At the same time, Edward Elric's hands also hit the ground. Use alchemy to constantly interfere with the attack of the abomination. Bang! General Estes Binglin's fist slammed directly into the body of the abomination. At the moment of the collision, the terrifying cold air froze a large part of the loathsome body. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yuki Asuna and Cece looked at each other. Don't look at how fiercely they usually complain about each other, but once this happens, the tacit understanding between them is very strong. Which, you know what I mean. I know. With Cece's voice down. The two women rushed directly towards the hatred. In their hands, they found a large stone at random. Yuki Asuna, who has undergone gymnastics training, has sharp movements. And Cece has lived for such a long time, and has mastered a lot of fighting skills. The two women easily climbed onto the body of abomination from the blind spot behind the abomination. Two stones smashed on the hateful eyes like a bamboo shoot. Don't look at the indestructible body of the abomination. But for most creatures, eyes are always one of the weak points. It is simply impossible to have too much defense. You guys, I must kill you all. Turned into a loathsome Bronski, he roared at the crowd. Immediately after hitting the cold ice on his body, countless cracks appeared. In the next second, it turned into countless ice crystals, which drifted away with the wind. And at this moment, Hyuga Hinata slowly closed her eyes, and then opened them suddenly. Roll your eyes. Don't underestimate us. Hinata spoke to the hatred in front of her with her slightly immature voice. At the same time run with the very famous Hokage, running towards the abomination. Soft fist technique Bagua 64 palms. Accompanied by Hinata, Hinata's voice fell. She quickly rushed to the face of the abomination, and put the abomination in her gossip. The blue chakra was ignited in both hands. After images stack up. In the blink of an eye, 2 palms, 4 palms, 8 palms, 16 palms, 32 palms, and 64 palms were all hit by Hinata. He could only hear continuous voices from the loathsome body. All 64 acupuncture points were blocked by Hinata. The powerful numbness made the hatred unable to control his body. But this can't limit the hatred at all. Hate gritted his teeth, chopped his feet, and threw his fist in front of Hinata. Little Hinata, be careful, Hinata, get out of the way. Hinata also sensed the fist style of hatred, and the power of insight in the white eyes is not in vain. Substitute, accompanied by Hinata's low murmur. I saw that there was an extra stone in the original position of Hyuga Hinata. The stone was shattered by the abomination's fist. The figure of Hinata appeared not far away. Seeing this, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. On the contrary, Suyi seemed to have noticed Hinata's movements long ago, and didn't have any worries. The hatred at this time, I just feel as if I was severely teased by that chick. Kid, go to hell with me. Roaring with hatred, he took the lead in rushing towards Hinata. In his opinion, Hyuga Hinata is the best to kill. But at this moment, Estes and Unohanaretsu stood in front of the abomination. I won't let you bully Shao Hinata. When Unohanaretsu was speaking, he pulled out his own Zanpakudo Shizuku. And Estes also untied his General Binglin, standing heroically on the only path of hatred. Although I really don't want to use this trick, but in order to solve you quickly, it doesn't matter. Accompanied by Estes, voice fell. I saw her body exuding an unprecedented cold air. Even Suyi looked at Estes with some seriousness. HMPH. Bluffing. With your strength, you are no match for me at all. Go to hell. The loathsome figure came to Estes. The raised fist hit Estes directly in front of him. But Estes didn't panic in the slightest, and his cherry lips parted slightly. The demon god appears the essence of demons Mokobatmo. Accompanied by Estes, voice fell. The time and space of the entire earth is completely frozen by Estes. However, after using this ability, Estes found himself in this world. The effect of freezing may only be a short second. So without any hesitation, Estes immediately used a lot of freezing air to wrap up the abomination. Even all the blood in Hate's body was completely frozen. At this point a second has passed. Everyone came back to their senses. Suyi even turned his gaze to Estes, wondering when he would be able to let Estes kill him once. Maybe, I will be able to master the method of fighting against the freezing of time. And at this moment, Uji Huali walked in front of the hatred. The solution is all done. I saw that when Ujiware performed the swastika, the blade of the Zanpakudo and the surrounding environment would ooze blood in a large area, and the blade became a blood blade that could be extended and bent. In an instant, countless sword shadows flickered. An unrivaled attack fell upon the abomination. The hatred that was already frozen all over his body has no way to resist Unohanaretsu's attack at this moment. As the first Kenpachi, Unohanaretsu has a terrifying combat power that is completely opposite to his appearance. The sharp blade cut through the space with ease. The sharp bleak echoed, rippling on the body of the loathing. Kaila. In the blink of an eye, hating the frozen body, he was dismembered by Unohana. Arms and thighs were broken. The head is also separated from the body. It can be said how arrogant he was before, but how embarrassed he is now. Undoing the swastika, Maujawali slowly withdrew the knife. The crowd also gathered in front of Estes and Unohanaretsu. He kept praising the fighting power of the two of them. And at this moment, Whitebeard's voice reached everyone's ears. I said, have you forgotten me? There is a stronger guy here. Roar. As if in response to Whitebeard's words, the Hulk opened his bloody mouth. He punched Whitebeard. The Hulk at this moment has accumulated a lot of anger. Anger made him stronger, so much so that this punch directly sent Whitebeard into the sea. As a devil fruit capable user, no matter which world, the sea is like a terrifying poison. This is also Whitebeard's biggest weakness. Fortunately, this time Whitebeard is not fighting alone. I saw a large amount of ice spreading rapidly across the sea. Death freezes large areas of the ocean. Let Whitebeard not just fall into the sea. At the same time, Whitebeard also secretly made up his mind. He must earn points as quickly as possible, and then cancel the side effects of the devil fruit. At that time, he won't look too embarrassed because of the sea water. Su Yi looked at the Hulk, who had almost doubled in size in front of him, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Everyone, leave this guy to me. Everyone, leave this guy to me. Su Yi handed the potato chips to Hila. Then from the beach next to him, he slowly stood up and walked towards the Hulk. Su Yi, you must be careful, this guy's strength is constantly rising, as if there is no limit. Whitebeard said to Su Yi. He was afraid that Su Yi would be overwhelmed by the Hulk if he was unprepared. But regarding the Hulk's details, Su Yi can be said to know clearly. Theoretically speaking, the more angry this guy is, the stronger he will become, and there is no upper limit. Following Su Yi's voice fell. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. They looked at the Hulk, who was not far away, like a chimpanzee, who was constantly beating his chest, and felt unprecedented surprise in their hearts. They had never heard of this creature. In that case, wouldn't it be impossible to defeat him at all? Hearing Estheth's words, Su Yi set his sights on the Hulk, and said, no, there are many ways to defeat the Hulk, as long as they are several times stronger than the Hulk, we can solve it all at once. After a pause, Su Yi said again, besides, there should be no problem with Hannah's mental explosion. After I play with the Hulk in front of me for a while, I'll let you try it. Is it okay? Hannah nodded vigorously, well, no problem. Now that she has acquired this ability, Hannah will do her best to make herself stronger. After all, what she wants to do most is to help Su Yi. But when Su Yi and Hannah were talking, Hulk has already launched an attack towards Su Yi. The Hulk, who has been furious for a long time, can be said to be very powerful. As far as the Earth is concerned today, there are only a handful of guys who can stop the current Hulk. And Su Yi in front of him is one of them. When the Hulk took the first step towards him, Su Yi had already sensed the Hulk's thoughts. Su Yi didn't even look at the Hulk, just stretched out an arm, and grasped the Hulk's arm as if predicting. Immediately afterwards, Su stepped out step by step. The arm exerts force. Hulk's huge body instantly left the ground and flew towards the sea ahead. A green arc was drawn in the air. Haven't waited for everyone to react. Su Yi's figure disappeared instantly. When he reappeared, he was already standing directly under the Hulk. Hulk, do you want to fly higher? Only, the Hulk is now on top. The only response to Su Yi was a huge green fist. Well, it seems that I want to. Su Yi said to the Hulk lightly. The same middle finger clasped the thumb, and then flicked towards the Hulk. In the eyes of everyone, this is already Su Yi's signature move. Following Su's flick of a finger, everyone only heard the sound of explosions in the air. The Hulk flew towards higher altitudes at an extremely fast speed. Then, after the strength was continuously attenuated, it fell from the sky. Bang! I saw the Hulk slamming into the water from a high altitude. Falling into the water at this height is undoubtedly equivalent to falling above the ground. Immediately afterwards, the surface of the sea with the Hulk at the center rippling in all directions with monstrous waves. The waves rolled up a large number of fish, at least reaching a height of 6 meters, completely blocking everyone's vision. At this moment, Estes stretched out his hand and froze the sea water in front of him. And Whitebeard clenched his right fist tightly, and punched it forward. Lol, the space seemed to be broken. The ocean that had been frozen into ice was completely shattered at this time. As the ice crystals shattered, everyone could finally see Su Yi's figure. However, after seeing Su Yi's figure, they all looked at the scene in front of them in astonishment. I saw Su Yi holding one finger of the Hulk, constantly swinging it up and down, back and forth, left and right. The speed was so fast that even phantoms appeared. Every time the Hulk landed on top of the water, there will be waves. As time went by, Su Yi had fun playing there. The members of the chat group are constantly resisting the invasion of seawater here. Obviously Su Yi is fighting here, but they are more tired than Su Yi at the moment. Su Yi, hurry up and end, otherwise, we will be exhausted. Whitebeard shouted to Su Yi in the distance. At the same time, the ability to shake the fruit is activated again. Crack the sea water in front of you. Whitebeard had already forgotten how many times he had swung his fist. But now, even he, known as the Four Emperors, felt his arms were a little numb. Su Yi just felt a little tired of playing. So after hearing what Whitebeard said, he took the Hulk directly to the island. Although Hulk's powers have grown even stronger. But when facing Su Yi, his strength is like that of a 3-year-old doll. There is no resistance at all. After Su Yi completely restrained the Hulk. Then he said to Hannah next to him, "Hannah, I'll leave the rest to you." Hannah nodded slightly, immediately stood in front of the Hulk. As Hannah slowly closed her eyes, then opened them suddenly. A red flying bird pattern flew towards the Hulk's eyes. In an instant, unprecedented pain exploded in Hulk's mind. Don't look at the Hulk, the angrier and stronger he is. The toughness of the skin is extremely powerful. Even the recovery speed of the body can be said to be extremely terrifying. But its spiritual world is completely like a child. No defense at all. Definitely a guy with full physical defense and zero magic resistance. As the red flying bird completely submerged, only a shocking cry of pain was heard from the Hulk. Then the figure slowly shrunk. It ended up being Dr. Bruce Banner. As for the Hulk's personality is dead. Or he was seriously injured and fell asleep, that's not what Su Yi needs to care about at all. Because he knows that whether it is the Abomination or the Hulk, it is enough that Nick Fury wants to bring back the guy most. In S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury got a message from Tony Stark. "Tony, what happened to the Hulk and the Abomination? Su Yi seems to be shielded, and we can't see anything in his area." Tony Stark's voice came from the communication device. "I don't know too well, I was kicked away by Su Yi in the past moment, but what? Since the appearance of Su Yi, Nick Fury has become anxious more and more times. But Su Yi said, if you want to get back the Hulk and the Abomination, I'll let you find him yourself. Well, I'm going to deal with my wound now, and I'll talk about it later when I have something else to say." "Wait a minute, Tony, if I remember correctly, did you invite Su Yi to go to the racing club in Monaco?" "Yes, what's wrong?" "Nothing, I'm just asking." And this sentence made Tony Stark even more suspicious. "I said Nick Fury, you don't intend to sneak into Su Yi's villa when he leaves, do you?" "Don't worry, I'm not that stupid." After Nick Fury finished speaking, he hung up the phone. Originally, he really thought so, but he just thought about it. He will never do that. Because that would undoubtedly lead to fire. But what if this news was leaked to General Ross? Thinking of this, a white smile appeared on Nick Fury's black face. Hate being dismembered. Dr. Bruce Banner fell into a coma. Regarding this, Su Yi asked Estes to freeze the two of them together. Anyway, Bruce Banner has the power of gamma rays. Even if it is frozen for more than 10 or 20 years, it is simply a trivial matter. After finishing all these, Su Yi used the cosmic Rubik's Cube again and returned to his villa. The entertainment program is over. The rave party continues. It lasted until the early morning, and this time the party was completely over. Many members returned to their own world through the passage. At this moment, Hannah and Hela also snuggled into Su Yi's arms and fell into a sound sleep. Su Yi put his arms around the two girls, sighed, and said, "This life is so wonderful." The next day, sunlight poured into the room from the window. Hannah opened her eyes as usual. Su Yi's cheeks were immediately reflected in Hannah's beautiful eyes. Looking at Su Yi in front of her, Hannah instantly realized what happened yesterday. It turned out that yesterday was really not a dream. I really got superpowers. At the same time, he woke up with Su Yi. This kind of beautiful feeling made Hannah feel that she should not be too happy. But at this moment, a whimper sounded. Following the groaning voice, Hannah saw Hela stretched slowly on the other floor of Su Yi. Followed by Hela's stomach making noise. Cuckoo cuckoo. Immediately, Hela, who had just woken up from her sleep, blushed instantly on her face. It's just that he hasn't waited for Hela to say anything. Hannah said to Hela, "It's getting late now, I'm going to prepare breakfast now." In a short time, Hela's embarrassment was resolved. Now Hela's body has basically recovered. But still no power. So, you still need to eat. Wait until the injuries in the body are fully recovered, and after the birth of divine power. She swears that when the time comes, she will never be so embarrassing again. Soon, under Hannah's skillful hands, a delicious breakfast is ready. The smell of breakfast wafted into Su Yi's nose. Su-yi also slowly opened his eyes. After eating, Su-yi drove the sports car and drove Hannah to the school. And this scene happened to be seen by many students. My God, did you see that? Hannah got off Su-yi's sports car. In other words, are Hannah and Su-yi really together? Sure enough, it's too easy for a woman to chase a man. I'm really envious of Su-yi. It doesn't matter if he's handsome, but with so much money, and the schoolgirl Hannah chasing after him, he's simply a winner in life. Hearing the words around her, Hannah blushed slightly on her pure and pretty face. It seems to be changing the subject. Hannah said to Su-yi, Su-yi, are there any problems with my eyes? Don't worry, there is no problem at all. If someone asks you, just say that these are colored contact lenses. Ah, Hannah nodded, then slowly stretched out her catkin, and gently hooked Su-yi's finger. Hannah's heart was beating faster and faster, as if a fawn was bumping around. He looked at Su-yi beside him. Hannah felt that Su-yi didn't seem to care. Then he took a step closer to Su. The whole person leaned against Su-yi's body very intimately. This feeling made Hannah feel very happy. The other side. General Ross paced the room. From time to time, he stopped to look at the time on his wrist. An anxious look was already on his face. At this moment, the door of the room slowly opened, and a man in military uniform hurried in from the outside. Seeing this, General Ross hurriedly asked the visitor, "How is it? How is the investigation going?" When the man saw General Ross, he didn't hesitate at all, and immediately said, "General Ross, I have already investigated clearly. SHIELD should have hidden the abomination and the Hulk in a villa in Queens." "In the villa? Are you sure?" The man nodded vigorously. "I'm sure, this is the information I got from a high-level member of SHIELD." The man said again, "The most important thing is that when I went to investigate the villa, that villa actually belonged to the highest level of encrypted files. I think it is very likely that it is hidden there." General Ross kept thinking, nor is he a fool. He always felt that there was a fraud in it. You must know that the Hulk was in a state of rampage at the time, and there was still abomination. It can be said to be very tricky. If the opposite side can solve the Hulk and the abomination, definitely be able to get rid of them. It seems to have noticed General Ross's thoughts. The man continued, "By the way, General Ross, I also found out that the owner of the villa has accepted Tony Stark's invitation and will be going to Monaco the day after tomorrow." After General Ross heard this sentence, his eyes lit up. That is to say, there will be no one in the villa the day after tomorrow. Yes, there will be no one the day after tomorrow. Hearing the words of his subordinates, General Ross's mind suddenly became alive. Since that's the case, from now on, we will prepare all kinds of related matters. When the day after tomorrow, you go to this villa and search for the whereabouts of the abomination and the Hulk. I want to see people, and I want to see corpses. Understand, is there any? Yes, I'll go down and make arrangements. Just as his subordinates reached the door, General Ross suddenly stopped him. You guys prepare the SHIELD action costumes for me, and put on the SHIELD costumes for me when I go into action the day after tomorrow. Yes, this man was General Ross's confidant. Naturally, knowing this kind of thing is a secret operation. Be careful and prepare all kinds of things. On the other side, Nick Fury, after learning that the news had spread. I was very happy, sitting in my seat, ready to wait for the result of the day after tomorrow. In his opinion, General Ross will definitely take the lead. Because Nick Fury knows General Ross. There's absolutely no way he'd let go of the Hulk and the abomination. And most importantly, General Ross said before that he would share the Hulk research data. After General Ross succeeds, he can send someone to ask for it. This is simply equivalent to going whoring for nothing. However, Nick Fury also knows the cunning of General Ross. Not very relieved, he still sent a lot of people to monitor the actions of General Ross. However, just when General Ross and Nick Fury thought they both had the chance to win. On the roof of the school, Su-yi took out the reward given to him by the previous chat group. A perfect devil fruit with no side effects, phantom fruit. Su-yi lay on the railing on the roof, playing with phantom fruit in his hand. Looking out from the roof, his deep eyes glanced back and forth at the tall buildings in the distance. Finally, he set his eyes on the blue sky. In other words, Odin should have noticed Hela's escape a long time ago. Why hasn't he sent anyone over yet? I still want to fight them. Su Yi murmured, revealing a little disappointment in his tone. Then, he bit on the devil fruit. In an instant, the juice of the fruit exploded in Su Yi's mouth. The sweet taste spread in the air. According to Su Yi's understanding, isn't the taste of a devil fruit hard to describe? It is said that it is disgusting and unpalatable from the soul. But what is the situation today? Why is it so delicious? When thinking of this, the electronic voice of the chat group rang in Su Yi's mind. Ding, Phantom Devil Fruit is a perfect devil fruit without side effects. Its perfection is impeccable even in taste, and it is equivalent to an extra ability after taking it, reusable fruit that is perfect and has no side effects. Hearing the words of the chat group, Su Yi nodded slightly, and then ate the devil fruit in his hand completely. Immediately, Su Yi slowly closed his eyes. Feeling the changes in his body, he only felt that there was an extra energy flowing in his body. Su Yi slowly opened his eyes. A phantom who looked the same as Su Yi appeared in front of Su Yi. Looking at the phantom in front of him, Su Yi touched it with his hand. It's just that when the hand touched the phantom, it directly penetrated through it. Oh, no way, it's actually a real phantom. In addition to being equivalent to an extra field of vision, there is only one phase shift. As Su Yi's words fell, his body became more and more illusory, while the phantom on the opposite side became more and more substantial. From a certain point of view, it is equivalent to a fixed point transmission. But it doesn't matter, after all, I just ate the fruit. Capabilities still need to be developed. Although it doesn't seem to have much combat power, it is absolutely no problem if it is used for assistance. It may even be the fruit of the strongest auxiliary performance. Thinking of this, Su Yi lightly snapped his fingers. The phantom in front of him completely dissipated in front of Su Yi. When going out to play this time, just leave a phantom at home to see if there is any limit in terms of distance. However, I have something to do recently, at least I can develop my ability to play. Thinking of this, the corners of Su Yi's mouth could not help but rise slightly. Soon, it was time to leave school. After Su Yi sent Hannah home, he took Hila to the mall and bought a lot of clothes. This is Hella's first time shopping. This feeling made Hila feel very strange. After picking out a few sets of clothes suitable for traveling, Su Yi and Hila returned to the villa together. Blink of an eye. The time came the day after tomorrow. Su Yi had already prepared his luggage, waiting for Tony Stark to pick them up. On the contrary, Hila was in the living room, playing with a white pigeon constantly. Su Yi, when did our family have an extra white pigeon? With that said, Hila was about to touch the white pigeon in front of her. However, Hella's catkin went straight through the white pigeon's body. At this time, the white pigeon flapped its wings and flew towards the TV in the distance. The two claws look like they are grasping the TV, stabilizing the figure there. Hila was slightly stunned. She looked at her fingers, wondering what happened just now. Why did my fingers easily pass through the white pigeon's body? You must know your own experience, what strange abilities you have never seen. But now, he was frightened by a white dove. This made Hila feel a little shocked. Turning her gaze to Su Yi next to her, Hila wanted Su Yi to explain. In response, Su Yi stretched out his finger. At this moment, the white dove flew to his finger. It's just a very common ability, don't be so surprised. Hila heard that Su Yi didn't care, and immediately said, ordinary ability. I'm curious what kind of ability can create such a real phantom. If it can simulate the sound and momentum, it can even create a field of illusion. You actually told me that this ability is normal. Hearing Hella's words, Su Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. Su Yi lowered his arm, and the white pigeon spread its wings at this moment, circling continuously in the villa. Even, you can hear the chirping of birds. Although untouchable, there is no entity. But phantom fruit can indeed simulate sound and momentum. What Hila said just now gave Su Yi a lot of different thoughts. When he came to the side of the sofa, Su Yi hugged Hila into his arms. On her white forehead, it was printed lightly. As expected of my little Hela, the way of thinking is different. Hela gave Su Yi a white look, and her cherry lips parted slightly. I'm not young at all. After speaking, Hela moved closer to Su Yi. The whole body was attached to Su Yi's body. The warm atmosphere made Su Yi feel a little dry and hot. And at this moment, the doorbell rang. Tony Stark stood at the gate and said to the device, "Su-Yi, I'm here to pick you up." Hearing Tony's voice, Su-Yi glanced at Hila resentfully, and couldn't help saying, "Tony really knows how to choose the time. Let's go on a trip, the destination is Monaco." After finishing speaking, Su-Yi looked at the phantom white pigeon next to him, and said to the white pigeon, "Then I will trouble you to take care of the house." Cuckoo. The white dove let out a cry, and stood on top of the TV, just like a real white dove. Afterwards, Su-Yi hugged Hila's willow waist and walked towards the door. And Tony Stark's assistant put Su-Yi's suitcase in the trunk. Tony Stark looked at Su-Yi in front of him, and said to Su-Yi very comfortably, "Su-Yi, believe me, this will definitely be a very interesting journey." "Really? Then I will look forward to it." After finishing speaking, Su-Yi leaned forward, and his eyes fell on Tony Stark's neck. There are weird lines on it, which look like tattoos. But Su-Yi, who understands the plot, knows what this thing represents. This means that Tony Stark has been deeply poisoned. Who would have thought that the thing that originally saved Tony would now kill Tony instead? As if sensing Su-Yi's gaze, Tony Stark glanced at the little pepper beside him, feeling a little guilty in his heart, and immediately said, let's go to Monaco quickly, I can't wait." Hearing Tony Stark's words, Su-Yi also nodded, and said, "Yeah, I can't wait too, you know, there are a lot of beautiful girls there." Before Su finished speaking, he felt Hela's indescribably sharp eyes. I only heard Su-Yi laugh out loud at this moment, and entered into the extended version of the luxury car with his arms around Hela. "Tony, let's go." Chapter 51. Following Su-Yi got into Tony Stark's luxury car and drove towards the airport. General Ross and Nick Fury instantly set their eyes on Su-Yi's villa. "Has that guy already left the villa?" Report to General Ross, "The news is correct, they have already taken Tony Stark's car and headed for the airport." Hearing the news, General Ross couldn't help breathing a little faster. He wished he could go to Su-Yi's villa right now, and take the Hulk and the body of the abomination. Start the corresponding research immediately. But at this time, he still endured it abruptly. I only heard General Ross say, "Wait. When they take the plane and fly to Monaco, we are conducting operations." "Yes, remember, this operation is top secret. Don't let other people know that these guys are sent by us. After they complete the operation, we will kill them all directly. Do you understand? It doesn't matter if you act in a SHIELD uniform. As long as other people don't know that this is his subordinate, then there will be no problem. As for the confusion caused, let them investigate for themselves. At that time, it is estimated that SHIELD will be very busy. Taking advantage of that time, he will be able to study the power of the Hulk and the Abomination crazily. He will definitely become a stronger existence than the Hulk and the Abomination. He wants to become the most perfect giant. At that time, there will be no one in the whole world who will be his opponent." Thinking of this, General Ross immediately laughed out loud. Soon, General Ross's eyeliner reported to him again. Tony Stark's private jet is already flying in the direction of Monaco. General Ross, who had just received the news, didn't have time to be happy at all, and immediately ordered to the action team, "Now is the time, start to act. I hope to hear good news from you." I only heard a voice answering from the other side of the communication device, "Yes, General Ross." After finishing speaking, they headed secretly towards Su-Yi's villa. Immediately, General Ross turned to look at the subordinate next to him, and said again, "Then I will leave it to you to deal with their affairs." "Yes, General Ross, this subordinate promises to complete the task." After finishing speaking, General Ross's subordinates walked out of the room. However, at the moment when the door was just closed, the subordinate's face became very ugly. At this moment, the subordinate's heart was very angry. I thought that General Ross said that as long as the task is completed, those people will be completely eliminated. So does it mean that he is also very likely to be killed by General Ross? You know, I am also one of the insiders. Wait until those operators are all resolved. Then the only people who know the inside story are General Ross and himself. According to his understanding of General Ross, he would definitely kill himself. A strong sense of uneasiness mixed with unparalleled anger spread crazily in the hearts of his subordinates. He is loyal to General Ross, but he is very likely to be killed by General Ross. This sense of betrayal, which is difficult to describe in words, made him make a decision. Shield. Nick Fury is sitting on his seat. In front of him was the recently collected information. The information shows the various actions of General Ross in the past 2 days. However, according to various intelligence reports, General Ross did not make any moves. This makes Nick Fury feel very strange. You must know that General Ross was willing to pay any price for the Hulk. Nowadays, there is no one in the villa. As long as someone is sent there, they will definitely be able to find something. So why, General Ross hasn't taken any action yet? Coulson, is this all the information you can investigate? Coulson nodded slightly, and said, Director, this is already our limit. If we continue to investigate, I'm afraid we will offend those above. Hearing this sentence, Nick Fury sighed. Don't look at their shield as very powerful. But when facing the top few people, it is also very helpless. After all their funds are basically sponsored by them. Otherwise, how could they be able to operate such a large intelligence agency? But at this moment, Coulson received a message. Immediately, Coulson's expression changed. Director, there is a person named who wants to find you, saying that he has information about General Ross. Hearing Coulson's words, Nick Fury's expression changed suddenly. Turn him around first, and then go to track the source of the signal immediately. Yes. After Coulson finished speaking, he immediately started to get busy. And Nick Fury also picked up the communication device in front and contacted General Ross's subordinates. I have a piece of news about General Ross, but in exchange, I need to make a few requests. Request? No one can make a request with me. After finishing speaking, Nick Fury signaled Coulson with his eyes, telling him to move faster and quickly find out where the source of the signal is. But this time you have to agree to my request. Time is running out, Nick Fury. You really don't want to know what General Ross has done in the past few days. Nick Fury's face remained unchanged. He said that except in front of Suyi, he never counseled him at other times. I only heard Nick Fury say slowly, Oh, then why do I think? You seem to be very nervous, you are the one who is about to run out of time. The subordinate's expression changed. Yes, he really didn't have much time left. Especially when talking to Nick Fury. This subordinate even felt that he seemed to have been penetrated by him. This feeling made him very unhappy. Anyway, procrastination is dead, and the subordinate immediately said to Nick Fury, Cooperation, win-win. If you don't cooperate, you will be unlucky, and so will I. Following the subordinate's voice fell. Coulson immediately placed the tracked signal in front of Nick Fury. Nick Fury only saw the source of this signal, which was clearly in General Ross's territory. Since you said that time is running out, let's talk about your news and conditions. The subordinate observed the surrounding environment vigilantly. When it was confirmed that no one else came, he said to Nick Fury, My request is to be protected by S.H.I.E.L.D. 24 hours a day, and give me $100 billion. $100 billion. Why don't you grab it? It's more cost-effective than robbing, isn't it? Nick Fury's expression remained unchanged. His fingers tapped the table lightly, thoughts flickering in his mind. I agree with your terms, tell me what you know. The subordinate received Nick Fury's reply, and a relaxed smile suddenly appeared on his face. Immediately told Nick Fury all the news he knew. At this time, Nick Fury finally knew what General Ross was thinking. A icy breath rushed straight to the back of Nick Fury's head, making Nick Fury's body unbearably goosebumps. If there is no this guy, tipping off the news, then they will be buried in the dark until now. At that time, the uniform of S.H.I.E.L.D. alone will be enough to make Nick Fury drink a pot. The scariest thing is none other than Suyi. Without any hesitation, Nick Fury immediately said, You stop them immediately, and I will give you $200 billion and close protection of top agents. However, just after Nick Fury had just said this sentence, contact is completely terminated. The subordinate took several breaths in a row to calm down his nervous mood. Then he walked towards the mission location. Although $200 billion is very good, but now he is already walking on the edge of the knife. He must first ensure his own absolute safety. As the saying goes, it is the case that a dead friend will not die a poor one. Only by killing those who perform the task first, can I become the most special one. At that time, as the only witness, S.H.I.E.L.D. will definitely protect him. This is the cruelty of the world. Everyone wants to work hard to get rid of the identity of chess pieces. Even if I try my best, I want to become a chess player. What, you mean Su Yi? Sorry, that guy is an exception. On a private jet, Su held the goblet in one hand, savoring the aroma of the wine carefully. And Hila looked at the sky outside the window. This is her first time on a plane. This novel feeling was enough to keep her for a long time. Tony Stark looked at the two people in front of him, with a little sadness hidden in his expression. Su Yi, I have something I want to ask you. Before Tony Stark could finish speaking, Su Yi directly interrupted Tony Stark's words. I only heard Su Yi say lightly, do you want to ask about palladium element poisoning? Tony Stark froze for a moment, then subconsciously asked, how do you know? You dismissed your personal secretary, it's not palladium poisoning, what is it? Tony Stark sighed, sure enough, this kind of thing can't be hidden from an existence like you. With that said, Tony Stark took out a blood testing device from his arms. He pressed his index finger on it, and after a few seconds, the number 29% was displayed on it. The richness of the palladium element in my body has reached 29%. When it becomes 100%, I think I will die. Tony Stark said again. So, I want to ask, do you have any way to deal with the current situation? Hearing Tony Stark's words in front of him, Su Yi yawned. Yes, and there are many ways. Su Yi's words made Tony Stark's eyes light up. During this period of time, because of the matter of palladium poisoning, he was thinking too much. He rearranged all the elements. But still no use. Without palladium, he would die. If he continues to use the palladium element, he will still die. It nearly broke him. But at this moment, Su Yi said to Tony Stark again, it's just Tony, what do you want to exchange for my method? Tony Stark froze for a moment. But at this moment, Su Yi said again, well, I'm not in a hurry anyway, you should think about it first, I'm sleepy, so I'll go back to my room and sleep first. With that said, Su Yi pulled Hila and walked towards the room of the private jet. Only Tony Stark was left, lost in deep thought. At this time, Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. immediately dispatched Coulson and Natasha after seeing the disconnection. Let them head to Su Yi's villa as quickly as possible to prevent this mission from happening. However, it was too late after all. General Ross's subordinates, still wearing the uniforms of S.H.I.E.L.D., came to Su Yi's villa after all. At this time, the white dove on the TV looked at the people who came to the villa, and immediately flew aside. A small white dove that attracts no one's attention. I saw that after they entered the villa. Immediately connected to General Ross's communication device. General Ross, we have entered the villa. General Ross, search for the location of the abomination and the Hulk immediately. Yes, immediately, the 10 team members used various devices to start a search in the villa. And the picture Baiga saw was also transmitted to Su Yi's mind simultaneously. Su Yi looked at the uninvited guest in his villa through the gaze of the white pigeon. The corners of the mouth raised slightly. Wearing the clothes of S.H.I.E.L.D., the contact person was General Ross. It seems that Hulk and Abomination are really very attractive to them. What's wrong, Su Yi? Hela was in Su Yi's arms, looked at Su Yi in front of her and said. Hearing Hela's words, Su Yi shook his head slightly, it's okay, it's just that some unexpected guests came to the house. As Su Yi's words fell, Hela suddenly showed a monstrous murderous aura. She has already regarded the villa as her own home. As the goddess of death, Hela fights all year round. Apart from her hometown of Asgard, Hela's favorite is the villa where Su Yi lives. Now, someone comes uninvited. If Hela had divine power, she would definitely let these guys know how to write the word, death. Su Yi, don't let them die so easily, let them go to hell with endless fear and regret. Hearing Hela's words, Su Yi immediately hugged Hela into his arms. Don't worry, I know how to deal with this kind of thing, and I will come when I go. After speaking, Su Yi's figure became even more illusory. And the pigeon phantom on the other side gradually changed into the appearance of Su Yi. While transforming, Su Yi also used the ability of phantom fruit to completely hide his figure. So not even one person noticed this weird scene. He moved his body casually. Su Yi became more and more satisfied with the phantom fruit's ability. Perhaps the phantom fruit's bonus to combat power is not high. But the effect of the support is absolutely god level. Just like that, those 10 people searched in the villa. As the owner of the villa, Suyi followed behind them, watching their movements. Everything seems so weird. Follow behind many agents. Suyi even turned on the video function in the chat group to broadcast live. The members of the group flooded into the live video in an instant. Yuki Asuna, what's the situation? Could it be that your house was burglarized? CC, is this the legendary Oriole behind? Edward Elric, this is not a squirrel, I'm afraid it's not a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Hinata, Tyrannosaurus Rex. You bad guy, how can you say that about brother Suyi? Hinata, angry, JPG. Whitebeard, I don't know why, but I always feel that there is a fruity breath in it. Suyi, that's right, this is the ability of phantom fruit, the reward given to me by the chat group after the call for help is completed. Suyi didn't hide anything either. Anyway, members of the privilege of calling for help and rewarding the group owner knew about it. Yuki Asuna, phantom fruit, what ability does it have? I have been preparing for gold recently, and when the time comes, I will find the old man with white beard to buy a fruit. Seeing Yuki Asuna's words, Suyi immediately said in the group, I think the phantom fruit is simply a god-level auxiliary fruit. There are not too many directions for development. You are optimistic. With that said, Suyi patted the shoulder of the agent in front of him directly. When the agent felt someone pat him on the shoulder, he turned around and looked behind him vigilantly without the slightest hesitation. But everything is so normal. The phantom fruit continuously simulated the surrounding phantoms, wrapping Suyi's figure in it, achieving the effect of invisibility. Therefore, the agent had no choice but to realize that there was another person behind him. A trace of cold sweat rolled down the agent's face. He clearly felt something tapped on his shoulder. Why, when I turned my head, there was nothing there. The members of the chat group laughed like crazy at this moment. Yuki Asuna, ha, have you seen the expression of this agent? He is stupefied. CC, I saw it, really, we are not blind, how could we not see it? Estes, I feel like the group leader is good or bad, but I really like it. Jawali, I wonder how long their spirits can last. Edward Elric, if it were me, I'd probably have passed out. Everyone in the chat group watched the live video with great interest. And Suyi was also very playful. Touch that person for a while, smash a cup for a while. Made all kinds of noises and weirdness. The 10 agents were so frightened that they screamed again and again. The terrified scream resounded in the ears of General Ross through the communication device. General Ross only felt his ears buzzing. But before he could speak, there was a rustling sound from the communication device. No matter how General Ross contacted the 10 agents, there was no voice response. Because Suyi has already deployed the shielding device at this time. I didn't expect that the shielding device that I bought for 100 points in the points mall could still come in handy at this time. Unknowingly, 10 agents came to Suyi's villa. At this time, they were already back to back and moved closer together. Their eyes constantly scanned the surrounding environment. Cold sweat had already soaked their clothes. Listening to the rustling sound from the communication device, they swallowed subconsciously. It's really weird here, it feels like it's haunted. I was walking just now, and when I saw me in the mirror, I suddenly smiled at me. It's just too scary in here. Hearing everyone's words, the face of the captain among them can be said to be extremely ugly. But now the task is in hand, they must complete the task no matter what. Thinking of this, the captain took a deep breath and forcibly suppressed the fear in his heart. He said to the surrounding team members, this time, let's not separate. Anyway, the people who live here have already left, and they will definitely not come back for a few days. After a pause, the captain said again, no matter what, this mission is only allowed to succeed, not to fail. I don't believe it, this place is really haunted. Suyi next to him was sitting on the sofa, looking at the very vigilant agents back to back in front of him. The corners of his mouth rose slightly. Suyi raised his hand slightly. The ability of phantom fruit is activated. Countless phantoms appeared under Suyi's control. The terrifying scene of ghosts and snakes slowly descended from the sky along with the blood that transformed from the ceiling. Although the phantom has no entity, the atmosphere has been skillfully constructed. The terrifying atmosphere seemed to make the temperature in the room drop a lot. One of the agents seemed to have a slight sense and looked towards the ceiling above. I saw the pupil shrank suddenly, and his eyes rolled up. Puff! This person collapsed directly on the ground, and everyone was startled by him. The agent who was the captain felt even more tense in his heart. Hey, what's the matter with you? This is not the time to joke. As he said that, the captain squatted down, touched the fallen agent, even pulled down the agent's eyelids, and examined it carefully. However, the result made the captain's heart completely sink into the abyss. He seems dead. As the captain of the agent, he only felt that his words were a little awkward. The backlog of emotions before exploded completely at this time. Suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, one of them also spotted the terrifying phantom slowly falling from the ceiling, and immediately screamed in horror. With a swipe of his face, he became very pale. His weak body made him fall to the ground subconsciously. And this scream attracted everyone's attention. They all looked at the top of the ceiling following the gaze of the screaming person. Unparalleled fear instantly dominated their vision. When they came back to their senses, they only found that they seemed to be trapped in countless seas of blood. And in front of them stood some frightening monsters. There is absolutely no way for these monsters to describe them in words and words. There are only those tentacles, claws and claws in the air. Shoot, shoot, shoot me, the captain of the Secret Service screamed in horror, regardless of the actions of the surrounding secret agents. He was the first to aim the gun in his hand at the monster in front of him. But at this moment, there was a sudden gunshot behind him. Wisps of gunpowder smoke drifted to the tip of the captain's agent's nose. The pain surged up, constantly stimulating the brain. The originally powerful arm lowered slowly, and the gun fell to the ground. Looking down, I saw that he had been shot several times in the stomach. Blood flowed out from the abdomen unstoppably. At this time, the captain turned to look at his teammates, and said to them with the remaining strength, Why? However, just when the captain's voice just fell, another large number of bullets fell on the captain. Captain, pawn, 4, why? The captain of the Secret Service exhausted his last breath, and slowly turned around to look behind him. He didn't know what the reason for this was. Why did my teammates point their guns at me? Why on earth is this? It's just that he has no strength now. He could only slowly close his eyes, and completely fell into the endless darkness. But the teammates saw the captain's death, but a flash of excitement flashed in their eyes. Ha 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 ha, this monster was killed. It's really great. In other words, can these monsters be killed? Since that's the case, what are you afraid of? Let's immediately concentrate our firepower and fight a bloody way out. But just as the agent's voice fell, he only saw the agent opposite him, who suddenly turned into a terrifying monster. Before his brain could react, his body subconsciously pulled the trigger and shot directly at the monster in front of him. The bullets were continuously discharged from the gun, constantly piercing through the monster in front of him. It wasn't until the monster in front of him was completely limp on the ground that he breathed a sigh of relief. But at this moment, someone shot him again. This frightening and weird scene is being staged continuously. They are like puppet toys, played by Suyi in the palm of his hand. You know, Jawali, this ability is simply too strong. As long as you put the phantom on that person, you can confuse the enemy's vision and let them kill each other. Whitebeard. Sure enough, there are no garbage fruits, only garbage users. If this horrible way of using it is put on the battlefield, it will definitely have a miraculous effect. Estes. Not only on the battlefield, even in a single battle, it can also be invisible and attract attention. It is definitely a big killer in the battle of life and death. CC. I remember Whitebeard said that even fruits can be awakened. I don't know how powerful Suyi's phantom fruit will become after awakening. Yuki Asuna. I'll be able to save enough gold soon. I don't want a fruit as powerful as Suyi, as long as it's not too difficult to develop. Yuki Asuna. I want to become stronger too. Hinata. Sister Asuna, you can definitely do it. We believe in you. CC. HMPH, I'm planning to exercise a bit too. Do we want to have a competition then? Yuki Asuna. Compare, whoever is afraid of whom. And in reality, Su Yi used the ability of the phantom fruit to plunge the agents into a cannibalism. Gunshots continued to ring out in the villa. Until among the agents, only the last one remained. The man was shot 3 times in the stomach. But neither is the point. With his excellent physique, this is not a big injury. He looked at all kinds of monsters in front of him, and finally stopped appearing. My heart completely relaxed, and at this time, Su Yi withdrew the ability of the phantom fruit. At this moment, the villa that was originally full of scary ghosts completely returned to normal. Looking into the eyes, there are no ghosts anywhere, only corpses all over the ground, with countless blood flowing, staining the ground. Suddenly, the heart of the last agent seemed to stop suddenly. He looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. The expression on his face changed. There are no more terrifying phantoms, and all the truth has surfaced. What kind of terrifying monster is this? Aren't the truly terrifying monsters themselves? Stretching out his hands, he looked at the blood of his teammates on the palms. The pleasure of surviving after a catastrophe completely dissipated. It was replaced by endless guilt and self-blame. What happened just now came to his mind. The picture he saw also changed from a terrifying phantom to the shock and confusion of his teammates. The agent looked at everything around him. I just felt like I shouldn't have come here in the first place. Thinking of this, he slowly took out his pistol. He opened his mouth and put the gun in it. Drunk. At this time, Su Yi's figure sitting on the sofa was slowly revealed. He looked at the scene in front of him in awe. Tisk tisk tisk. This is the scene where I broke into my room without authorization, but I will not let Nick Fury and General Ross go. Just when Su thought of this, I saw 2 more people coming outside. Natasha and Coulson came to Su Yi's villa immediately after receiving the director's order. Originally, they planned to stop them. But when they entered the villa, he found that Su Yi was sitting on the sofa. In the center of the living room were the corpses of 10 agents. For a moment, the 2 froze in place. Su Yi's eyes fell on the 2 of them. He's about to show off his acting skills. I only heard Su Yi say to the 2 of them, "What's the matter? Is it according to your information that I have already boarded the plane to Monaco?" Natasha was relatively calm. She looked at Su Yi in front of her, and said to Su Yi, listen to my explanation, things are not what you think. Explanation. Tell me how you want to explain it. The uniforms these guys wear are the best explanation. Su Yi sternly spoke. It seemed that he was very angry about this situation. However, what Natasha and Coulson didn't know was that when Su Yi showed his anger, he was in the chat group, but he was in the happy water group. Su Yi, how about it? Are my acting skills pretty good? Hinata, brother Su Yi is the best. Yuki Asuna, I'm afraid this acting skill can win a statuette. At this time, the atmosphere was very stagnant. At this moment, Su stepped forward 1 step at a time, and came in front of Natasha. The momentum on his body pressed towards Natasha mercilessly. Tell me, where is the headquarters of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Didn't Nick Fury say he wanted to find me before? Now I'm looking for him personally, and I want to listen to his explanation. An incomparably powerful aura pressed down on Natasha. Natasha only felt that she could not breathe at all under Su Yi's coercion. The incomparable momentum made Natasha's brain go blank. Under such circumstances, even though Natasha has undergone all kinds of cruel training, she still has no way to control her brain. I only heard Natasha directly say where Nick Fury is. But at this moment, Su stepped forward with 1 step, and his entire figure disappeared from the sight of the 2 of them. And with Su Yi's departure, only then did Natasha feel that the air was much smoother. Coulson next to him also slumped on the ground. That feeling he definitely didn't want to repeat. Natasha, what should we do now? Coulson said again. Shall we take advantage of Su Yi's departure and see what's in this villa? When Natasha heard Coulson's words, she immediately said angrily, if you want to die, do so, but please don't pull me. After finishing speaking, Natasha added, but before we leave, we can deal with these guys. However, when Natasha came to the pile of corpses, she found an unprecedented strangeness. She subconsciously said, these guys were not killed by Su Yi. Coulson couldn't react in his head, it wasn't Su Yi who killed him, who else could have killed him? Natasha narrowed her eyes slightly. She looked at where these guys fell and where they were shot, and kept deducing what happened in her mind. This is completely the most basic ability. So, Natasha soon finished her deduction. It's just that Natasha couldn't believe the result of the deduction. They seem to be killing each other. Coulson repeated. Cannibalism, how is that possible? Coulson quickly came to the side of these corpses, but judging from the surrounding bullets and scattered locations, these guys really killed each other. What happened during this period of time? Natasha and Coulson looked at each other. They all saw the deep disbelief in each other's eyes. Thinking that Su Yi is very likely now, he went to find their director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Unable to help, they prayed in their hearts that nothing would happen to the chief. Afterwards, the two began to deal with the scene. And the other side, after Su Yi found out where Nick Fury was. Then at an extremely fast speed, he rushed towards Nick Fury's position. Fast. 5 seconds to go. Wow. Nick Fury, who was anxiously waiting for the result in the room, felt his heart sink when he heard the sound of glass shattering and falling to the ground. When he turned around, Su Yi's figure came into Nick Fury's eyes. Su Yi is still acting at this moment. Anger spread across his face. There was a dangerous aura constantly exuding from his body. I only heard Su Yi say to Nick Fury in front of him at this moment, Nick Fury, I need your explanation. Why did you send someone to inspect my villa when I was traveling? Nick Fury forced himself to calm down. There is no way, Su Yi's aura is too scary. Misunderstanding, this is all a misunderstanding. This was framed by General Ross. I have found witnesses here, and I. Before Nick Fury finished speaking, Su Yi interrupted directly, I don't want to hear your explanation. I just want to know what you plan to do. After finishing speaking, Su Yi looked at the black stewed egg in front of him, and his aura continued to radiate. He knew that these guys were sent by General Ross. He was there, but he just came to find fault, came to ask for something he wanted. Nick Fury is also a human being, so he naturally realized what Su Yi meant. The anger in his heart. But in the face of the mighty Su Yi, there was nothing he could do. I only heard Nick Fury sigh at this moment, tell me, what should I do to calm your anger? After Nick Fury finished speaking, he secretly thought, Ross, you wait for me, I will never forgive you easily this time. After hearing Nick Fury's words, the corners of Su Yi's mouth rose slightly, and the aura on his body immediately disappeared. Nick Fury, I'm satisfied with your attitude, I don't want much, I just want all the information of your shield, what do you think? All the information? No, it's absolutely impossible. Even as the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., I can't do this at all. Since the establishment of S.H.I.E.L.D., too much information has been mastered. Not to mention the most basic member information, but the scientific research information in it is definitely not something that he alone can completely control. You know, there are many top secret files in the scientific research materials inside. For example, potions that can delay aging, potions that enhance body functions, and potions that have restored most of the super warriors. Even if these medicinal materials were burned, they would never be handed over to others. Because the stakes here are really terrifying. It can even cause chaos in the world in the shortest time. Su Yi was just talking casually, and it was useless for him to ask for such things. To put it bluntly, he didn't like it at all. So, Su Yi changed the subject and said to Nick Fury, if I remember correctly, Tony Stark's father's things should still be in your hands. Nick Fury naturally knew what Su Yi was talking about. That was Tony Stark's father at the time. Due to the limitation of the technology at that time, there was no way to create a new element, so he hid the secret of this element in the city's planning map. Prepare to hand it over to his son Tony Stark in the future. Nick Fury also had people conduct research, but nothing came out of it. He was really curious, what exactly is this guy wanting this kind of thing for? However, this is the best solution for Nick Fury. Use something that is of no use to him in exchange for calming down the situation this time. From Nick Fury's point of view, it is very worthwhile. Then Su Yi, please wait here for a while, I'll have someone bring it over for you. After speaking, Nick Fury immediately contacted his subordinates and handed over everything belonging to Tony Stark's father to Su Yi. No hesitation or reluctance at all. Su Yi nodded slightly, then I will treat this incident as if nothing happened, and I only hope that this kind of thing will not happen in the future. Oh, by the way, here are some small gifts from me, I hope you like it. With that said, Suyi took out a small pumpkin from his pocket and threw it directly to Nick Fury. Seeing the gift given to him by the great god Suyi, Nick Fury quickly accepted it. Immediately afterwards, Suyi took the things that had just been delivered, hummed a little tune, and left the place through the window. Seeing Suyi finally leave here, Nick Fury's heart finally relaxed. But, when Nick Fury looked at the little pumpkin in his hand, he didn't know why, but he just felt that the little pumpkin in front of him was a bit like the Green Goblin's pumpkin bomb. Immediately, Nick Fury's expression changed. Suyi is trying to kill me. As Nick Fury's voice fell, he directly threw the pumpkin grenade in his hand aside. Immediately afterwards, he rushed forward. Click. Only a crisp sound sounded in Nick Fury's office. There was no imaginary explosion, not even a bit of hustle and bustle. Instead, the sound of music blared. This surprised Nick Fury. He followed his gaze to the pumpkin bomb next to him. Found this pumpkin bomb, and a clown-like figure popped up. It's like a music box, where the sound is ringing. Getting up from the ground, Nick Fury picked up the pumpkin bomb. Then he said angrily, "This hateful guy. He is really relying on his own strength to act recklessly." If Sue heard this sentence from Nick Fury, he would definitely say, "Yes, yes, so what, I will ask you if you are angry." At this moment, an agent came in outside, Hawkeye. Hawkeye is a senior agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. with exceptional talent. He is good at archery, swordsmanship and various fighting skills. He is also an elite hacker. He walked in from the outside and said to Nick Fury, "Director, the person has been brought here and is in the interrogation room." Nick Fury threw the pumpkin bomb in his hand into the trash basket next to him. Then he said to Hawkeye in front of him, "I will go there in person, and at the same time, you should pay attention to General Ross's movements. Once you have information, please notify me immediately." "Yes, Chief." Nick Fury walked out of the office, and at the same time thought to himself, "Ross, you old fox, it's time to enjoy your old age in peace. But in prison. And this time, General Ross on the other side felt extremely anxious after being unable to contact the 10 agents. He stood at the command post in the rear, looking at Suyi's villa through the satellite. I only saw a blur, and there was no way to perceive any picture at all. It's like being completely blocked by something. What the hell is it? But don't fail. Thinking of this, General Ross immediately contacted his subordinates. It's just that the contact device can only be connected after a long time. "What happened? Have you killed them all now?" General Ross's voice reached the ears of his subordinates. At the same time, it also reached the ears of other people in the interrogation room. Nick Fury nodded slightly at the subordinate. The subordinate took a deep breath, and immediately said to General Ross, "Yes, my task here has been completed, I have dealt with them all, and the Abomination and Hulk are also being shipped, and they will be sent to you, General, soon." "Really? Then I'll wait here." After hearing his subordinate's words, General Ross was somewhat relieved. It seems that although I have no way to contact the Secret Service team, but the task is still in progress step by step. However, at this moment, General Ross felt a little strange. A bad premonition slowly rose in my heart. Thinking of this, General Ross walked towards his secret room. There is the Gamma device that was manufactured in the first place. Originally, he planned to wait until it was completely perfected before he would use it himself. But now, this bad premonition has been lingering in his heart. As an old fox, he naturally needs to be prepared for everything. Even if it is preparation for failure. If he really fails, or even gets exposed, he can only use this Gamma device to make himself stronger. At the same time, Suyi turned off the live broadcast, and put the things back in the basement of the villa. The villa has been packed by Natasha and Coulson. There were no bullets, bloodstains or corpses at all. After putting away the things, Suyi's figure slowly dissipated and turned into a phantom again. And Suyi and Tony Stark's private jet gradually became solidified. Suyi opened his eyes. I only saw Hela holding her hair, teasing herself constantly there. Seeing Suyi opened his eyes, Hela froze for a moment. There are bursts of water flowing in the winking eyes. Obviously, Su-yi saw what she did just now, which made Hila feel very shy. But Su-yi didn't mind at all. With a big wave of sus hand, Su directly hugged Hila into his arms. Immediately printed on Hela's cherry lips. Dash. In a blink of an eye, the plane landed at Monaco airport. Everyone got off Tony Stark's private jet. Take a ride on an extended version of the luxury car. But at this moment, Tony Stark's cell phone rang. Tony Stark glanced at the caller ID, and immediately complained to Su-yi next to him. Oh, it's Nick Fury, as long as he calls, there must be nothing good. With that said, Tony Stark hung up the phone. But then, Pepper, who was sitting next to Tony Stark, his phone rang. Seeing this, little Pepper picked up the phone. Nick Fury's voice came from the phone. Su-yi, Su-yi, you should be by my side. I need your help. As soon as Su heard Nick Fury's words, he immediately joked, oh, isn't this Mr. Nick Fury? I don't know what you want to find me. Do you not like the gift I gave you? Su-yi spoke to Nick Fury on the other side in a very standard broadcast tone. The extremely beating voice made Nick Fury want to beat Su-yi violently. But thinking of Su-yi's powerful strength, Nick Fury only felt that it would be better to speak up. Su-yi, the situation is very urgent. General Ross has turned into a red giant and is now wreaking havoc on everything. We need your help very much. Help, but I'm on vacation right now, you should find someone else. Su-yi's voice reached Nick Fury's ears through Little Pepper's cell phone. So much so that Nick Fury's speaking speed has doubled. I only heard Nick Fury hurriedly say, no, Su-yi, you can continue your vacation, as long as you hand over the Hulk to us, and we will discuss the price afterwards. Tony Stark couldn't laugh or cry when he heard Nick Fury's words. He didn't expect that the majestic king of secret agents would have to pay a lot in front of Su-yi. Thinking of this, Tony Stark's mood improved a lot. Anyway, now I know that Su-yi has many ways to save himself. So why are you panicking? How about having fun in Monaco? After hearing Nick Fury's words, Su-yi said, sure, as for the Hulk and the Abomination, I threw them under the pool in the center of the villa area. Pepper, Tony Stark, Nick Fury. Nick Fury never expected that Hulk and Abomination are two such powerful beings. It was thrown into the pool by Su-yi just like that. Then they have done so many things, what is it for? Look at Su-yi's indifferent appearance. If I knew they would have searched around the villa first. At that time, I will be able to secretly transport it away. But it's too late to say anything now. This price must be paid by itself. Thinking of this, Nick Fury sighed in his heart. Without wasting any time, he immediately hung up the phone. He arranged for his men to salvage the Hulk and the broken corpses of the Abomination that had been frozen and sunk at the bottom of the pool. They need Hulk's power now. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to compete against the Red Giant with the current ones alone. You know, the Red Giant is also very powerful. It is comparable to the Hulk in normal form. This is why Nick Fury is so anxious. Xiaojiao hung up the phone and sighed. It seems that the current world is really not peaceful. After finishing speaking, Pepper looked at Tony Stark next to him, with unspeakable worry in her beautiful eyes. But Tony Stark, holding a magazine at this time, handed it to Su-yi. Su-yi, the Monaco Racing Club can be said to be one of the top racing clubs in the world. I made an appointment for this afternoon's race, do you want to try it too? Okay, just try it, I still like racing cars. Really, then I won't show mercy when the time comes. He can't compete with Su-yi in other places, but in terms of racing, Tony Stark feels that he must have no problem. You know, for a playboy like him, racing can be said to be a compulsory course. Just as they said so. In the sky, the situation changed suddenly. Dark clouds are rolling, and thunder is howling. Dark clouds like pitch black ink hung above the sky like a curtain. Blocked the great weather and scenery. Tony Stark looked out the window and said, I didn't expect to encounter this kind of weather on the first day I came to Monaco. I don't know if we can play normally this afternoon. It's just that no one answered Tony Stark's words. He only saw Hela's eyes, looking at the sky. Lu Mei frowned slightly. His expression seemed a little dignified. At this moment, Su-yi said to Tony Stark, Tony, when will you arrive at the hotel? I booked the Monaco International Hotel. The entire hotel is booked out. You can see the building from here. Before Tony Stark finished speaking, Suyi said to Tony Stark, in this case, let's go first, let's talk about tomorrow if we have anything to do. After speaking, Sue opened the car door and left the driving car with Hela in his arms. When leaving, Suyi even closed a door smoothly. Looking at Tony Stark and Pepper, it can be said that they were dumbfounded. At this time, Pepper said to Tony Stark next to him, Tony, does your friend always leave like this? Tony Stark was also taken aback for a moment. This is also the first time I invited him. Tony Stark looked at the direction Suyi and Hela left, and felt very confused. At this time, Suyi had brought Hela to the top floor of the Monaco International Hotel. Standing here, it seems as if one can reach the dark clouds above with one hand. It can be seen how thick the dark clouds are. Hela snuggled into Suyi's arms, and said to Suyi, Suyi, I don't know why, but when I saw this thundercloud, I had a bad feeling. Bad premonition, isn't it? Suyi just saw the change in Hela's expression. I thought it was Thor, or the Meow Hammer fell. But after a careful induction, there is nothing in this billowing thundercloud. I saw Suyi lightly patted Hela's beautiful shoulder, and said to Hela, Hala, don't think too much, you are my pillow, without you, I won't be able to sleep for a while. When Hela heard Suyi's words, the pressure in her heart immediately eased a little. Me too, if I don't hold you to sleep, I won't be able to sleep. Hela winked, and the aura on her body changed drastically at this time. A large amount of breath gushed out from Hela's body. An incomparable breath of death emanates from his body, constantly contending against the billowing thunderclouds in the sky. Thunder Dragon roars. The arc diffuses. Terrifying thunder and lightning continuously condensed in the thunder cloud. In an instant, the light flickered. Like the sword of the gods, the thunder and lightning suddenly fell from the sky towards Hela and Suyi. At this moment, Hela took a step forward, holding her hair with both hands. The battle uniform intertwined with thick ink and dark green wrapped Hela's uneven figure in it. The terrifying breath doubled again. Hela's catkin waved upwards, and the sword of the night sky condensed out of thin air, stabbing towards the thunder and lightning. The speed of the sword of the night sky is a few points faster than that of thunderbolt. Even amidst the thunder, the sound of the sword of the night sky could be heard. In an instant, the thunderbolt and the sword of the night sky collided with each other. Boom! A bleak, terrifying, murderous aura and an unparalleled aura of thunder and lightning destructively agitated with each other in the sky. Immediately created a dazzling light. Immediately afterwards, a strong wind blew, blowing Hela and Suyi. As the light slowly dissipated, Hela's figure slowly floated in the air. Just like Suyi's self-introduction back then. Hela looked at Suyi in front of her, and said lightly, Suyi, let's get to know each other again. I am Hela Odinson. I am the goddess of death in Asgard. However, when Hela said this, she hesitated in her heart. She didn't know if she was right to say it. She was afraid that her identity would be hated by Suyi. Or maybe Suyi couldn't accept a woman called Death. But just when Hela was thinking wildly, Suyi shook his head. Suddenly, Hela's heart hung up. But at this moment, he heard Suyi's voice reaching his ears. I said, Hela, you don't have any energy at all. Come on, let me teach you how to be more energetic. As Suyi's words fell, Suyi flew into the air and grabbed Hela's willow waist. He rushed towards the billowing thunderclouds above the sky. The muscles on Suyi's arm began to bulge, then slammed forward. Bang! The power of one punch. The thunderclouds all over the sky dissipated. At the same time, the sun fell on the two of them. Hela, tell me about your ambition. Tell the world that you are back. Hela felt Suyi hug her body tightly. I just feel like the happiest person in the world. Hela looked at the sky at this moment and said, Hela, I vow to kill Odin, return to Asgard, and become the king of Asgard. After hearing Hela's words, Su Yidao said, okay, very energetic. Asgard. On the throne, Odin, who was dozing off, suddenly opened his eyes. In the short moment just now, he was keenly aware of Hela's aura. Odin is confident that he will never feel wrong about that monstrous killing intent. I didn't expect that Hela would recover her divine power so quickly. It wouldn't be long before she returned to her peak state. Odin muttered to himself. Thinking of Hela's terrifying power, Odin only felt that he had a headache. He is old. Although the divine power is still there, the body is always old. The fighting power is far worse than before. However, the fighting power of his sons Thor and Loki is far from meeting his requirements. Once Hela returned to her peak state, she came to Asgard. Then Asgard is bound to cause great chaos. Thinking of this, Odin only felt that time was running out. It seems that Hela must be completely defeated before Hela fully recovers. Odin sat on the throne and pondered for a long time. Immediately, someone called Thor and Loki. On the throne, Odin looked down at the two below. The majestic voice resounded in the ears of the two. Thor and Loki, both of you are my sons. Now I want to give you a task. Whoever can complete it first will be able to inherit my throne. Become the next king of Asgard. As Odin's words fell, a light flickered in the eyes of both Loki and Thor. Asgard values strength, and the throne that Odin sits on is a symbol of power. Loki rolled his eyes, and immediately said to Odin, Father God, what is this mission? Odin saw the active Loki, and didn't say much, but said lightly, the mission is to go to the courtyard and kill a woman named Hela. Odin said again, and I will fall into a deep sleep when you are carrying out the mission. When your mission is successful, I will wake up and perform the coronation ceremony for you. At this time, Thor said to Odin, Father God, how can we find that woman? Odin pondered slightly. As his own son Thor, he has his own blood, so as long as Hela appears nearby, he can feel Hela's presence. But Loki was the child of the frost giant king he picked up from the battlefield back then. The body does not have its own blood. Thinking of this, Odin had some determination in his heart. He stretched out his palm and forced out 2 drops of divine blood from the palm of his finger. The divine blood floated in the air, and slowly came to Thor and Loki. My blood will guide you. Remember, whoever completes the task first will be able to inherit the throne. After finishing speaking, Odin's figure slowly dissipated. He is going to sleep in the deepest part of Asgard. As for the reason for doing this, it is naturally to restore one's state to the best time. In case Thor and Loki failed, Hela went straight to Asgard. Loki watched as Odin really fell into a deep sleep. The mind in my heart suddenly became active. Thor and Loki carefully put away the blood in front of them. Then Thor said to Loki next to him, Let's go, Loki, let's go to the Rainbow Bridge, and then to the atrium. The atrium is the earth. It's just that after hearing Thor's words, Loki said to Thor, You go first, I have some things to prepare. After speaking, Loki walked towards the outside of the palace. Thor hesitated for a moment, and finally decided to go first. Because he has absolute confidence in his own strength. After Loki saw that the Rainbow Bridge was opened, a smile finally appeared on his face. For his own fighting power, Loki can be said to be very familiar with it. So, after seeing that Odin really fell into a deep sleep, Loki came to the Asgard treasure room. He wants to use the destroyer. With the power of the destroyer, complete this task. Anyway, Odin never said that these props cannot be used, right? Suddenly, Loki looked at the box of ice on the other side. For some reason, Loki only felt that this box of ice had a different attraction to him. But Loki was already planning to bring the destroyer, so naturally he didn't mind bringing another ice box. Although the ice box, except for the blood of the frost giants, any other race that uses the ice box will be cursed. But as a killer feature, it's still very good. Thinking of this, Loki took the destroyer and the frozen box, persuaded Heimdall in the name of Odin, and also used the Rainbow Bridge to go to the atrium. And the atrium at this time. That is the earth. Because of Su Yi's punch, the Monaco Racing Club's match that was originally scheduled for the afternoon was not cancelled, but was held as usual. At this time, Su Yi and Hela were in the restaurant. Taste the cuisine of Monaco. Hela sat next to Su Yi, and said to Su Yi, do you really not mind my identity? Of course I don't mind, but it feels very exciting. Stimulate, Hela repeated subconsciously, but then she reacted. As Yu-Jia, a blush suddenly appeared on her face. Okay, don't be gibberish, let's talk about something serious. Hela said again. My body has completely recovered now, and my divine power is also recovering rapidly, but there is still a period of time before I reach the peak. I feel that Odin will not miss this opportunity. Maybe he will send someone to kill me when he senses me. What are you going to do? Hela said to Su Yi. Su Yi was very natural, and hugged Hela in his arms. Simple, let's solve one by one, and when you fully recover, we will go to Asgard to have fun, and let you become the king of Asgard. By the way, what do you think? HMPH, don't think I don't know your little thoughts. Are you thinking in your heart that after I become the king of Asgard, you will feel more exciting? Hela's face was red, and her beautiful eyes just looked at Su Yi in front of her. I saw Su Yi laugh out loud at this moment, and said, "Come on, baby, open your mouth, ah." With that said, Su Yi picked up the delicacies on the plate and handed them to Hela. Let's eat quickly. It will be time for the game in a while. Anyway, you don't have to worry about Odin's affairs. After you reply, we will take Asgard together. Hearing Su Yi's words, Hela nodded slightly. Thinking of Odin, Hela's eyes shone with unprecedented hatred. After eating, Su Yi took Hela and joined Tony Stark and Pepper. Hey Tony, are you ready to beat me? Su Yi said to Tony Stark confidently. Tony Stark looked at Su Yi in front of him, shrugged his shoulders. As you can see, I am always ready to win you. Ha 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 ha, it's a good thing to have this belief, but you also need to have the corresponding ability. Then let's see the real chapter on the field. After speaking, Su Yi and Tony Stark walked towards the Monaco Racing Club. Following Su Yi and Tony Stark, they walked into the racing club. Immediately attracted the attention of people around. Look, is that Tony Stark? It really seems to be Tony Starky. My God, he came to Monaco. Who is the person standing next to him? It looks so handsome. I feel that this pair of talented and beautiful women, the handsome man and the beautiful woman, are simply too stylish. It must not be easy to be able to walk with Tony Stark. Wait a minute, I remember this guy. This guy seems to be the largest shareholder of Stark Industries. As soon as one of them finished speaking, everyone looked at Su Yi beside him in disbelief. The original shock at Tony Stark turned to Su Yi at this moment. In response, the corners of Su Yi's mouth rose slightly. Sure enough, he still enjoyed the shock and admiration of these people. Seeing Su Yi's scene, Hela raised her mouth slightly. For her now, being able to be by Su Yi's side was the greatest happiness. Hela, do you want to come with me? No, I heard that if you watch from the stands, you can eat popcorn. Hearing Hela's words, Su Yi clung to Hela's ear, and said to Hela, Hala, hasn't your divine power recovered yet? It stands to reason that you can supplement your own energy without food. Immediately, Hela was taken aback. Immediately afterwards, Hela said to Su Yi, I just like to eat, can't I? Unknowingly, Hela has changed from a high-cold goddess to an authentic snack. She even turned into a goddess who likes to be shy in front of Su Yi. This made Su Yi very happy. This shows that Hela is constantly changing because of herself. Then just watch from the stands and see how I win Tony Stark. Don't talk too much. Be careful when you lose. Tony Stark found that he and Su Yi actually got along quite well. At least Su Yi had something to say. Of course, this must be based on Su Yi's formidable strength. At this time, Xiaojiao said to the two of them, you two should stop arguing. The racing car belongs to the racing car, but don't hurt your peace. After finishing speaking, Pepper turned to Tony Stark and said, Tony, don't hurt yourself, understand? After Tony Stark heard Pepper's words, he immediately said, don't worry, I'm Tony Stark. However, what Tony Stark didn't know was that when he finished saying this sentence, among the crowd in the stands, there was a person who slowly exuded a little killing intent. This killing intent is very weak. But both Su Yi and Hela easily noticed this scene. However, the two didn't care at all. In the final analysis, whether it is from Su Yi's point of view or from Hela's point of view, this person who exudes killing intent towards Tony Stark is nothing more than a clown. It's not worth paying attention to at all. Immediately, the two walked towards the arena. With the help of professionals, both Su Yi and Tony Stark boarded the racing car. The tracks of Su Yi and Tony Stark are next to each other. At this time, Tony Stark said to Su Yi, if I win, how about you treating me for free? Tony Stark finally spoke his mind at this time. Regarding this, Su Yi just said lightly, the premise is that you want to beat me. I am very confident in my racing skills. Tony Stark was not timid at all, he said to Suyi next to him. Come on then. As Suyi's voice fell, the command lights in front of them flickered. In an instant, the tires of all the racing cars began to spin crazily. The strong power, with a terrifying speed, set off white heat. This is the breath produced by the crazy friction between the tire and the ground. It can be seen how powerful the power of the car is. Many racing cars are like arrows leaving the string, rushing forward at an extremely fast speed. The roar of the racing car immediately ignited the crowd in the stands. Their screaming waves, like the sound of racing cars, ignited the hormonal shackles in their bodies. Su's face remained unchanged, and he drove the racing car forward. Relying on his strong nerve responsibility, Suyi didn't slow down even at the curve where he should slow down. In the blink of an eye, Suyi's racing car reached number 1. It's just that Tony Stark is right behind him. He bit Suyi's back tightly. As Iron Man, his neural responsibility is not too bad, and he has a lot of experience in high-speed flying. Adapting to this speed is simply not too childish. This is why he was able to follow Suyi closely. However, when they were racing each other, a man in orange overalls was slowly walking towards the track. Holding a toothpick in his hand, he sometimes put it in his mouth, with a look of disdain in his eyes. Tony Stark, my father's account, it's time to settle it. Afterwards, the man said again, and that Suyi, as the largest shareholder of Stark Industries, I will never let you go. While muttering to himself, the man had already arrived on the track. This scene shocked everyone instantly. They all stood up from their seats, poked their heads, and looked at the man on the track below. Hey, what is this guy going to do? He's looking for his own death. Even if you want to die, don't run on the track. Those racers are prone to accidents. Guy, hurry up and send someone to stop him. However, these people do nothing more than shout. If you really want to stop it, how can you stop it? Just when they felt that this man was looking for death, the man stretched out his hands and tore the clothes on his chest, revealing the armor-like battle clothes inside. There are whip-like weapons on both hands. A button was pressed on both weapons. Powerful electric lights flickered, gradually filling the whip. At the same time, the clothes on his body also began to gradually dissolve. The battle clothes inside were completely exposed. At this moment, everyone was shocked. They opened their mouths, looking at the scene before them in disbelief. What's up with this guy? Is he also wearing a steel suit? So he didn't rush in rashly. This is completely prepared. The spectators in the stands looked at the scene in front of them in amazement. Pepper apparently also noticed the mishap on the runway. Immediately, she picked up the suitcase next to her, and said to Hela, who was eating popcorn next to her, Hela, aren't you worried about Suyi? Don't worry, because no one can hurt Suyi. Hela wasn't worried about this at all. But Chili Peppers are different. For some reason, she just felt that Tony Stark was hiding something from her recently. In particular, she can often notice that Tony Stark's face is very pale. Most importantly, without armor, Tony Stark is an ordinary person. Thinking of this, Little Pepper felt even more anxious. Immediately, she stepped on her high heels and rushed towards the runway. At this time, in front of the man Ivan Vanko, a racing car had already driven up. This car is the last one. I saw Ivan Vanko directly raise the whip in his hand, and slammed it heavily on the top of the racing car. Lightning flashed on the whip, like a cutting knife, splitting the racing car in half with ease. Sparks flicker. The racing car that was split in two flew straight out because of its speed. Hit the guardrail on both sides. The driver was even more indifferent and died. The sudden scene made everyone scream. Immediately afterwards, there was the explosion of the racing car. Flames wrapped the car that had split in two, constantly burning the wreckage of the racing car. The flames seemed to completely ignite Ivan Vanko's heart. No matter who it is, die for me. Ha 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 ha. Ivan Vanko laughed loudly, showing his yellowed teeth. And at this moment, Suyi, who was at number 1, had just turned a corner, and saw the extremely rampant Ivan Vanko. I didn't expect this guy to actually come here. It seems interesting. The corner of Suyi's mouth raised, and he murmured softly. But there was no mercy under his feet, and he stepped on the accelerator to the end. The terrifying speed of the racing car was manifested at this time. Su Yi directly charged towards Ivan Vanki. The speed is astonishingly fast. However, facing such a fast car, Ivan Vanki's face did not change at all. He raised his hand and swung it towards Su Yi, who was in front. Clap, 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 clap. In the blink of an eye, Ivan Vanki swung 5 lightning whips. The afterimage of the whip came into Su Yi's eyes. I saw that the racing car was easily chopped into several sections by Ivan Vanki. Among them was a whip that swung close to Su Yi's seat. So much so that Su Yi was thrown out of the seat directly. Just when everyone thought that Su Yi would definitely die, unexpectedly, they only saw Su Yi in the air, unexpectedly made a 720 degrees somersault and then landed safely. Su Yi even raised his hand high, with a smile on his face. It's like participating in a sports meeting, enjoying the attention of everyone. At this moment, everyone in the stands fell silent instantly. They rubbed their eyes subconsciously, and looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. The audience in the stands fell silent. Ivan Vanki also turned to look at Su Yi. His pupils shrank suddenly, and his face suddenly sank. However, just when Ivan Vanki felt incredible, the whistling sound of racing cars was heard in the distance. Let Ivan Vanki recover from the shock in an instant. I saw Ivan Vanki looking forward. Ranked second is none other than Tony Stark. Immediately, Ivan Vanki left Su Yi behind his mind. His primary target this time is Tony Stark. As for Su Yi's words, let's talk about it when we have time. Thinking of this, Ivan Vanki turned his gaze to his eyes. He kept spinning and waving the electric whip in his hand. When the whip touched the ground, it left a section of scorched black marks. Go to hell, Tony Stark. As Ivan Vanki's voice fell, he turned to the right side, and the whip in his hand fell directly on the front of the racing car. Snapped. The whip can be said to be powerful. Directly cut Tony Stark's racing car in half. The racing car that was running at high speed lost its stability, and the whole car rolled over towards the front. Tony Stark naturally knows the current crisis. His face was a bit hideous, and he tried to protect most of his body as much as possible. Try to minimize your own damage. Then get out of the car. At this time, the little pepper appeared in time. Holding the red suitcase in his hand, he threw it directly in front of Tony Stark. Seeing this, a gleam of light flashed in Tony Stark's eyes. I saw a smile on the corner of his mouth. Without any hesitation, Tony Stark endured the pain and got up from the ground. Then he stepped on the suitcase. With Tony Stark stepping on top of the suitcase, many parts popped out of the suitcase in an instant. They seemed to have their own consciousness, constantly arming Tony Stark's legs. Immediately afterwards, Tony Stark bent down and grabbed the 2 handles that popped up on the suitcase, and slammed them aside. The mechanical beauty is fully reflected at this time. Countless tiny parts spread continuously, popping out metal shrapnel one by one. They build on each other. Within a few breaths, Iron Man Tony Stark came into everyone's eyes. Immediately, the people around were very excited, took out their mobile phones, and wanted to record the scene that happened in front of them. Look at this scene in front of you. Su Yi scratched his head. Tisk tisk tisk, it looks like Iron Man, which attracts their attention even more. So, would you like some popcorn? At this time, Hela's voice sounded beside Su Yi. Regarding this, Su nodded his head, and said, okay, we just happened to be able to watch the excitement. Su Yi took the popcorn from Hela's hand, and then waved his hand. He directly hugged Hela in his arms. Swaggeringly became a melon-eating crowd outside. With the steel suit, Tony Stark was completely wrapped. Tony Stark also let go of a little solemnity in his heart. Although I don't know who the person in front of me is, why he has a technology similar to his own. But the most important task now is to completely solve this guy in front of him. Thinking of this, Tony Stark's sharp eyes fell on Ivan Vanki like a sharp sword drawn from its sheath. I saw Tony Stark stretching out his arm. The palm was aimed at Ivan Vanki in front of him, and the light gradually condensed. The muzzle light in the palm became brighter and brighter. But just when Tony Stark was about to shoot, but Ivan Vanki's whip was wrapped around his arm. Hold back Tony Stark's palm cannon abruptly. The originally bright light also completely dimmed in a short period of time. However, it's not over yet. When Tony Stark was about to break free from the whip in Ivan Vanky's other hand was directly wrapped around Tony Stark's body. The powerful energy wantonly destroyed the steel suit on Tony Stark's body. The iron suit that Tony Stark is wearing now is Mark's suitcase armor. When Tony Stark researched it, Soo-yi also received this set of steel suits for collection. The main purpose of this battle suit is to be easy to carry and can be used in emergencies. It's just that in terms of combat effectiveness, it's really a bit urgent. Facing Ivan Vanky's whip attack with a lot of energy. It can't last long at all. At this moment, the audience in the stands froze. They couldn't imagine that Iron Man, who was invincible in their impression, would actually fall into a disadvantage at this time. Little Pepper was not far away. Seeing this scene in front of him, he covered his mouth in horror. His heart was about to be pulled out by Tony Stark. "Give me death." When Ivan Vanky said this, he used his hands violently. With the exoskeleton-like armor on his upper body, Ivan Vanky also has a lot of strength. The whips wrapped around Tony Stark's arms were locked tightly. Directly swung Tony Stark over. Kai la kai la kai. The energy on the whip is continuously released. As Tony Stark was thrown out, the armor on his arms was completely knocked off. Everyone in the stands screamed at this moment. It was hard for them to imagine how Tony Stark, who was in such a crisis, would be able to kill the person in front of him. Tony Stark looked at his arms exposed to the air, his face getting darker and darker. Even because of the injury just now, his breath fluctuated violently. The invasion of the palladium element into his body caused Tony Stark's physique to decline rapidly. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so abused. Ivan Vanky looked at the desperate Tony Stark in front of him. A cruel smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. I only heard his voice very disdainful, and said to Tony Stark, "Ha ha 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 ha, you lost. Tony Stark, you lost." With Ivan Vanky's wild laughter, he took his own steps and walked towards Tony Stark in front of him. Every time Ivan Vanko took a step forward, Tony Stark took a step back. Seeing this action of Tony Stark, Ivan Vanky was greatly satisfied. "Tony Stark, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid that I will kill you?" As Ivan Vanky's voice fell, he stepped forward. The whips in both hands whistled and swung towards Tony Stark. Even Soo-yi is within the range. "Oh who?" Soo-yi looked at the surging whip, with a trace of disdain in his eyes. "He is here, just a melon-eating crowd. I didn't expect to be affected by this battle." The raging whip rolled towards him. Soo-yi calmly took out a piece of popcorn, and flicked it towards the whip. All I saw was a straight line drawn by the popcorn in the air. With lightning speed, it directly hit Ivan Vanky's wrist. Bang! The blood flower exploded. Intense pain rushed to the brain in just a moment. Ivan Vanky couldn't help clenching his teeth. He glanced at his arm, only to see that his arm had already exploded into flowers. How is this possible? A touch of panic emerged in Ivan Vanky's heart. Unbalanced, he spun and fell to the ground. As for the whip in the other hand, it was drawn directly on Tony Stark's leg. Let Tony Stark also fall directly to the ground. Tisk tisk tisk, this look is really embarrassing. After finishing speaking, Soo-yi said to Tony Stark, "Tony Stark, you owe me another life now." When Soo-yi finished speaking, Soo-yi took out 3 more popcorns from the popcorn bucket. 1 click, 2 clicks, 3 clicks. Soo-yi popped 3 popcorns. The 3 popcorns flew towards Ivan Vanky's legs and left hand with terrifying force respectively. Bang bang bang. 3 blood flowers bloomed. Immediately afterwards, there was the sound of Ivan Vanky's wailing in pain. Soo-yi couldn't help shaking his head. "Don't you think it's okay for you to live well? What do you want to do to provoke me? What do you think, Hela?" Hela nodded slightly. "Yeah, whoever provokes you, I think it's bad luck." Following Hela's words, the security guards of the Monaco Racing Club rushed over from a distance. They all rushed over to deal with the aftermath after receiving the order. I saw that they mercilessly dragged Ivan Vanky away from everyone's eyes. And Ivan Vanky, who was dragged away, roared at Tony Stark and Soo-yi, "Tony Stark. Soo-yi, I will never spare you. As long as I am still alive, I will completely kill you." Puff. Before Ivan Vanky finished speaking, Soo-yi once again gave Ivan Vanky a piece of popcorn. Only this time, Soo-yi aimed at Ivan Vanky's head. Afterwards, I heard Soo-yi say lightly, "Noisy." At this moment, everyone fell into silence. Originally they thought that the strongest and most handsome should be Tony Stark. But then Ivan Vanky's whip seemed to slap their faces fiercely. In front of Ivan Vanky, even Iron Man Tony Stark was brutally brutalized by him. Just when they thought the strongest was Ivan Vanky. Suyi's powerful power has completely refreshed their three views. Only 5 popcorns were used to completely end the life of Ivan Vanky. Far from frightening them, on the contrary, it makes them feel unprecedented stimulation. This powerful impact on the field of vision can be said to make everyone go crazy. They took out their mobile phones one after another, trying to capture Suyi's figure. But for these guys, Suyi directly put a fuzzy phantom on himself and Hela. No matter what it is, there is no way to capture the appearance of Suyi and Hela. At this moment, Tony Stark stood up unsteadily from the ground. He directly untied his steel battle suit, panting heavily. The palladium element was constantly eroding his body, making his physique decline very obviously. This feeling made Tony Stark feel very uncomfortable during the battle. Immediately, Tony Stark said to Suyi, "Suyi, what can you do to save my life? I've had enough of this palladium element." Hearing Tony Stark's words, Suyi said lightly, "Simple, I have a collection here, which is regarded as an item of your father before his death, and a new element can be extracted from it, and you can use that element to carry out replace. It's the last gift your father left for you before he died. You need to know this thing, but I just got it from S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D., Tony Stark whispered again. I don't know what I was thinking. Then what is the price I have to pay? It's very simple. After you have researched this new element, give me the method of making this new element, isn't it very simple? After a pause, Suyi said again, as for the price I paid for saving your life just now, what do you think I will come to you again after I think it over? Tony Stark nodded slightly. I see, these are not problems. As long as the problem of palladium can be solved, Tony Stark said that he is satisfied. Seeing that Tony Stark agreed, Suyi stood up directly from the side. Now this place is also destroyed. I will send someone to deliver the things to you later. I will withdraw the rest of the time. After speaking, Suyi took Hela and walked outside. And at this moment, the voice of the chat group sounded in his mind. Ding, mission released. Clear the first floor boss. Limited number of people 3, the fixed member Yuki Asuna has been bound, and there are 2 places left. Clearance reward, Great Swordsman's Peak Cultivation. Ding, members who participate in the mission can get a fully submersible helmet for free. Yuki Asuna, what's going on? Is there a mission, or is it about my world? Edward Elric, Sao, what's that? Yuki Asuna, a completely submerged game, but listening to the words of the group leader, it seems that there are other secrets in it. Yuki Asuna, call the group owner. CC, Suyi, Suyi come out quickly, Asuna misses you. Yuki Asuna, ah, you witch, I think it's your own thinking. Don't take me with you, please. Just when the 2 women were about to continue their venomous tongue, Suyi came out. Suyi, Sao does have a lot of secrets. Generally speaking, anyone who enters this game cannot exit the game. If they die in the game, they will die in reality. Suyi, but the experience used to improve oneself is pretty good. Even if one's strength is not very strong, one can still participate in this mission. Yuki Asuna, Suyi, are you planning to take part in this mission? After all, it will be easier to fly with the group owner. CC, that's right. From the looks of it, Su knows Sao very well. If the group leader leads the mission, the members who participate in the mission should be able to improve their combat effectiveness even more. Whitebeard, how about letting Suyi and CC participate this time? CC, although I don't want to admit that I am the weakest, I really should exercise. Yuki Asuna, I think you are afraid that I will surpass you. CC, I am immortal, do you think I will be afraid of you? CC, laugh, gif. Suyi looked at the 2 girls, and they were about to start a fight again, so he quickly said to Yuki Asuna, get ready, when I finish handling my affairs, I will meet you with CC, you also take advantage of this time to prepare a little bit. Yuki Asuna, okay, I'll make a deal with the old man with Whitebeard first, I've already saved all the gold, and I'm going to buy a devil fruit. Edward Elric, sure enough, CC is right, you are really rich. Edward Elric. Tears of Poverty. GIF. Yuki Asuna. Ahem, slip away. After speaking, Yuki Asuna withdrew. She's going to make some preparations. Suyi and Cece will come over and make preparations. By the way, make a deal with Whitebeard first. Seeing this, Suyi also withdrew from the chat group. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.